Odessa. Get the car on the trailer. Long drive to get here, and we're happy to be here and part of Stampede Week.
One of the most important festivals in all Stampede. It's a week-long celebration of the westward and expansionist spirit of this entire continent. And ASA is very proud to be a part of it. We are in the foothills of the Canadian Rockies, not too far from downtown Calgary, Alberta. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Larry Newber. This is Rob Albright. Now, if you were with us a week ago, you know that the race at Odessa, Missouri was a pretty tough one. And what can best be described as an odyssey has brought all of these teams here today.
Well, some of the over-the-road stories told by these racing teams are almost legends. Stories of blown engines and haulers and blown transmissions, even such things as driver changes on the road without even stopping. But they're here, and they're ready to race today.
And the front row is a great story. A couple of drivers who have never been there before, and I guess you could call the pole setter himself a surprise. Here is Ralph Shaheen.
It has been 2 years since an ASA rookie has sat on the pole. Only 2 rookies in the entire history of the ASA have ever won an AC-Delco Challenge Series race. Steve Holzhausen is going to be trying to go for number 3 today. Steve, is there something about this racetrack that suits you so well, or are you just getting more accustomed to this Baker Racing entry?
Well, probably both. We've got the car working real good now, and this racetrack reminds me a lot of one back home in Wisconsin Dells. I couldn't pick it out right away, but Jay Sauter, I was talking to him before, and he hit it. This is it.
If there's ever an opportunity for a driver to get his first win, it's at a place he feels very comfortable at, Larry, and this is it for Steve Holzhausen.
Steve Holzhausen very well could be the man today. The preseason activities here, the skydivers were the men. The weather, a very comfortable 70 degrees, humidity down around 50%, just a slight wind. There is rain in the area, but should not happen until after this race is over. As you can see, beautiful, clear, Canadian blue azure sky with some lazy clouds.
I've been coming to Calgary for 5 years. This is the nicest weather I've seen here. And what a beautiful racetrack it is. A literal perfect oval. Although it has some pretty significant banking in the turns, that at 15 degrees, most of the drivers say you've got to run the bottom side of this racetrack. It may or may not be a full 2 grooves as we go racing here this afternoon. The straight slightly banked.
Well, the grid was really scrambled. You'll have to go all the way to the 8th position before you see what can be considered as a familiar up-front running name in ASA.
How about this front row? 2 drivers who've never been there. On the pole, the rookie Steve Holzhausen in the Baker Enterprises Oldsmobile. And alongside last year's runner-up in this event, Jay Sauter in the KC Motorsports Chevrolet car number 1.
Some of Michigan is actually north of the Canadian line. Very appropriate. The 2 Michigan drivers occupy row number 2. Tim Steele first on the inside, and on the outside, the dominant car and driver of this year, Johnny Benson Jr., Port City, Berger Chevrolet.
Who can forget the look on his face when he dropped out 1 week ago while leading? Starting 5th today, Jeff Neal in the split-fire spark plugs Pontiac, and outside of row number 3, Tony Raines in the ETR Racing Mex America E&L Brokerage Chevrolet.
The 4th row represents the spectrum of racing emotions from a week ago. Tom Harrington, starting on the inside of this row, crashed out hard. He's from Tennessee. And Mike Eddy in the Nationwide Dynomax Pontiac, well, he won the race, although it was unexpected.
Well, he ended last weekend with a trip to the hospital, but he's back and ready to go. Car number 66, Glenn Allen Jr. in the Track Auto Pontiac inside of row number 5. And a man who always runs well at Calgary, the Zero Hero, Tom Jones, in the Felpro Pacejack Quartermaster Pontiac.
Here is the remainder of today's starting grid. On the 6th row, a couple of visitors from the south. Sterling Marlin, who finished second yesterday at Daytona, and yes, Michael Waltrip. Row number 7, side by side. Cars numbered 11. That's the Winds Extend Lumina with Matt McClellan behind the wheel and Bob Seneker in the Lane Automotive Ford. The 8th row, Harold Fair, Kent Stauffer, a couple of very familiar ASA names. In the 9th row, cars numbered 7 and 9. Gary St. Amant, he's won one this year. He leads the Players Limited Cup, and Dennis Lampman. In the 10th row, 20th and 21st starting position, Tim Feedova on the inside, and Tony Roper, 4th place finish a week ago. The 11th row, from ice racing of all things and endurance road racing, Leighton Reese, a brand new sponsor this week, and Brad Loney, also a career best finish last week at Odessa. In the 12th row, on the inside is young 19-year-old Joey Knott, rapidly improving, and Trevor Siebert, he is the main man at this racetrack, undefeated at the Speedway, if you can believe it. And in the 13th row, Mike Sorensen in car number 35, and Terry Winnie in the Clark Oil and Refining Chevrolet number 2. And in the 14th and final row, the pair is David Anspaugh in the car sponsored by hundreds of school children, and Jim Weber, who is actually substituting for Scott Hansen. And that is why Weber is starting dead last.
Well, Gary St. Amant, the current points leader in the Players Limited Cup, coming into the race here this afternoon, the Players Limited 400. A substitute driver, I should say, a substitute race car. He's driving the Justice Brothers Gillen entry that for most of this season has been driven by Jerry Foyt from Houston, Texas.
Just about ready to go green the next time around. Tom Jones had made a pit stop before we went green. Problems with the in-car radio. But the Players Limited Cup is underway here at Calgary, Alberta.
Move by Jay Sauter. He literally drove Steve Holtzhausen down to the bottom of the racetrack. He badly wants to lead lap number 1, and he's going to do it as he comes off turn 4.
Just 399 laps to go as Jay Sauter, car number 1, leads lap number 1. Steve Holtzhausen, a challenging second, and moving on the outside already is the bright red and white number 21, just out of your picture. That's Johnny Benson Jr. Yep, there he is. If you've been watching these shows, you've seen that guy many times this year.
Benson has been dominant, Larry, but that car may be suspect. When I talked to him yesterday, wondering why he did not take advantage of much practice time, he said this engine has not been touched in 4 races, so he's just hoping to coax 400 laps out of it this afternoon.
See this shot from atop the starter stand here in the front straightaway of this 1/2 mile high banked oval, although the groove is right down in the bottom. There is first place, Jay Sauter. Second place is Steve Holtzhausen. Just a document for you, John Benson Jr. is 3rd. Tim Steele is running 4th. Tony Raines is 5th. Mike Eddy is 6th. Jeff Neal is 7th. Tom Harrington is 8th. Running 9th is Tom Jones. And 10th at this point is Glenn Allen Jr.
Jay Sauter continues to lead as Mike Eddy is challenging Tony Raines for the 2nd position. Holtzhausen gives Sauter a shot coming off turn number 4, returning the favor from the start of the race.
Well, he is not the man who started, and we have a smoker in corner number 4 dropping down the inside, getting out of everybody's way. But we have a battle up front in the top 5. That's Mike Eddy going to the inside of Tony Raines. Heavy traffic right there. Raines is make that Tim Steele that Mike Eddy is going the other underneath as Raines and Steele both drop back.
Eddy picked up 2 positions in 1 turn of this racetrack in car number 88. We sat with Mike at dinner last night and asked him if he was disappointed with his 8th place start. Well, the unflappable Mr. Eddy said, "No, I'm ready to race."
The smoker, by the way, who has returned to the pits early here is Joey Knott. Joey in the Knott Motorsports machine made the long trek out here. A lot of people thought, well, maybe he wouldn't, but that team is very committed to this series. And Joey has been showing, as I mentioned at the top of the show, pretty rapid improvement. They're going to be very disappointed that something has gone awry in the engine department.
Mike Eddy in the Nationwide Pontiac closing in quickly on the Berger Racing Chevrolet of Johnny Benson Jr. And this is really a bit of a surprise because Mike's car most of this season has gotten stronger after lengthy periods under green, but he is fast right out of the starting blocks this afternoon.
Also began to mention as we continue to watch 3rd, 4th, and 5th on your screen right there, Mike Eddy is 4th, that Steve Holtzhausen was not the man who drove this car a year ago. That was the car that Scott Hansen was in. And Scott Hansen, as you know, of course, was injured in an ASA race a couple of weeks ago. And he again this week will be joining us here in the broadcast booth.
Tim Steele in the HS Dine Engineering Pontiac after being genteelly moved out of the way by Mike. He's rattled back and he wants wants to retake that 4th position. As things for the moment have settled in, Dave Anspaugh's car number 37 already falling a lap off the pace.
It seems like a long race at 400 laps, but they circle around this half-mile over very quickly. The groove is right down in the bottom, and the cars really don't make an entire half-mile circle as they go around. As a consequence, the laps are down in the area of 16 and 17 seconds, and the laps go by fast.
Most of the drivers have told us that really 400 laps here is easier on you physically than some of the other tracks, just running a couple of hundred laps. Maybe when we bring Scott Hansen in shortly, he can tell us how it's been for him in the past.
Well, up front, the leader, Jay Sauter, the man from Necedah, Wisconsin, being closely trailed by Steve Holtzhausen, has already put a lap on the Clark Oil number 2 of Terry Winnie, the former midget driving champion, who has been a very consistent entrant in the ASA series this year.
Talked with Jay Sauter's car owner, Chris Weiss, yesterday, and he said, we're going to qualify up in front and lead. We need TV time. We need a major national sponsor. And I'll tell you, he's following his battle plan to the letter. As suddenly Benson now beginning to close on the top 2.
Well, currently, Jay's national sponsors, KC Motorsports, those are the people who are the proprietors of the team. And yeah, they wouldn't mind seeing something that's recognizable from New York to LA splashed across that tail. But who wouldn't, eh?
Joe Knott's problem at car number 48 now being confirmed from pit side, a broken valve spring, which is probably terminal for the afternoon.
That's a long ways to come to run a couple of laps at speed, and they were very pleased with their qualifying effort, and they felt that they were in a position to have a nice, consistent, solid run.
Joe, and just a teenager, has impressed a lot of folks with his ability on the racetrack this season. First time ever in a stock car in 1992.
Relatively smooth start to this race. We have 17 laps officially in the books, and Jay Sauter, who started on the outside of row number 1, beat Holtzhausen into that charge of corner number 1, and has led since the drop of the green. The 1992 AC-Delco Challenge Series on TNN is brought to you in part by Win Oil Company, makers of Win's Hot Shot Fuel products. One shot and you'll feel the difference. And by new Armor All Tire Foam. Just spray and walk away. And by Goodyear, #1 in tires. Well, Mike Eddy, the I guess all-time charging-est charger of ASA.
You mean the guy that you called a stroke last week?
And he's not stroking right now. He goes to the inside of John Benson Jr. Here's the man that most people thought would win the points this year, and here's the guy who has dominated the series. Boy, they're side by side. This may be only a race for third, but I guarantee you, Mike Eddy's aware of who's alongside him.
Well, if you're not sure what we're talking about when I said called him a stroke last year, as Tom Jones has slid off the track at car number 0. I don't know if he spun or maybe was coming into the pits. I think he's got a mechanical problem, and that probably will be the day for Tom Jones, the 0 hero. But as we started to say, Mike Eddy had a very large lead last weekend. It seemed to be taking rather easy, and Newber called him a stroke.
You needed to point that out, didn't you? Well, at any rate, Jay Sauter, I might add, is not stroking right now. We have completed 27 laps. He continues to lead as he has since the green flag, and running in second is Steve Holtzhausen. Eddy is third. Now, Sauter has never won one of these races. Could today be the day? And, hey, Jay, are you on schedule?
We are on schedule. We thought we'd win a race by now, and so we're a little disappointed in that, but we just keep trying. You know, we always give 110%. All the guys on the crew want to win bad. The driver wants to win bad, and KC Motorsports is going to win a race before the season is over.
Well, today may be the day. Jay Sauter so far has owned this race. While we were listening to Jay talk, that black and yellow number 88, Mike Eddy, has moved in second. The yellow flag flies for Mac McClellan in corner number 2 of the Winds Extend Lumina number 11, who was running comfortably inside the top 15. Incidentally, here is the man right now who has completed the highest percentage of laps of any car in the league this year. Mac McClellan has completed something like well over 92% of his laps, and he's #1 in that category.
Well, he has gotten seat time, and that's more important than anything as a rookie driver.
Well, we mentioned that Tom Jones had made a stop during the yellow flag for a radio problem. Then the car seemingly has dropped out here early, and Ralph Shaheen is standing by.
Well, unfortunately, Larry, the radio problem was the least of the big worries for Tom today. Tom, what was wrong with the engine?
Well, something seized up. I'm not sure exactly what. I think I spun a bearing. I'm not sure. But the Felpro, Pace Jacks, Quartermaster Pontiac was running real good until then. We were keeping up, just kind of biding my time. And something, I could smell oil burning or something, so I'm not sure exactly what happened, but we figured it was time to stop before I heard something too bad.
Well, for Tom Jones,
He was also debuting a brand new air cooling system. He was using the Nakaducts that came from the aviation industry to try and direct air into his helmet and into the cockpit. He was hoping to try and experiment with that. Perhaps that was something that will be on all ASA cars in the very near future. We're under yellow, but hey, guess what? We're on our way back. Show you land high. We're about 50 feet above and 50 feet behind the start-finish line. The guy in the center right here, as advertised, Scott Hansen. Scott, I tell you, that Holthausen guy is making the Baker Enterprises people seem like they made the good decision.
You bet. You know, the Wisconsin pair that started on the front row really did a good job with quick time and the way they've been leading off in the race. But what a view from up here. I mean, there's been races amongst the race all day here.
Well, right now the race has heated up front. Mike Eddy apparently wants to show Mr. Newber that he's not stroking this week because he has done nothing except move toward the front. And right now, Mike Eddy, he's got a faster car than Jay Sauter. And we got a spin coming out of corner number 4. It's Trevor Siebert down in the grass. He keeps the car going straight. Incidentally, for you Canadian fans, Trevor has lost a lap. Here's the man who is 7 for 7 on this track for today. He's never been in an ASA race. He's won an Atlantic race and some local stock car events. But up front, side by side.
Mike Eddy really put a fender on Jay Sauter in car number 1. We've talked this season about how much a gentleman Mike has been on the racetrack, but I don't think there's any love lost between these two drivers. Over the last couple of seasons, Scott Hansen, they've rubbed fenders on more than one occasion.
Yes, they have, you know, and as he come back again, you know, Mike is just he realizes he's got a car that's a little bit quicker and he wants to do it to the front.
Oh, he does have a strong car. That's probably the strongest Mike Eddy car we have seen on any of these televised shows so far this year.
What's surprising me is that he's doing it on the bottom of the racetrack. We noticed in practice yesterday, the last session of hot laps, that he was trying a second groove. Turn number 1 is extremely rough. I don't know if that's because they run monster trucks here, but Mike, I think, is set up to run any place on the racetrack today.
Well, the other thing that he said, Scott, was that you have to be able to use the second groove as you're lapping people, as you just saw right now as he went to the high side of Dave Anspaugh. Instead, if those guys don't run right down on the bottom, you are then moved up to like lane 2.5, and it's very, very touchy up there.
That's right. You know, the track comes apart just a little bit. It gets called what's marbles, and when that happens, you know, the car gets real loose. Tony Raines here in the ETR Chevrolet just apparently lost an engine coming down the backstretch.
Oh, a tremendous amount of smoke coming from underneath Tony Raines' hood, and boy, what a big surprise, because of all the people who have gone through travails getting here this week, they had probably the smoothest week. They had an okay race last week, avoided a big crash in the front straightaway, but they had a leisure ride out here this week. Look at all this smoke. Mosquitoes are a serious problem out here. Maybe this will help.
I heard they had a super time up here in the pit stop contest as well.
Yes. They won the pit stop competition, and isn't that the way it is in racing, though? Just when you think, oh, things are going our way, the gremlins jump up and grab you.
Frequently, when an engine part breaks, you'll see a lot of smoke, but that's an excessive amount. And I think, Scott, when they take that motor apart, they might find bits and pieces everywhere.
There's a possibility that an oil line possibly could have come off of the car or something. They're all looking under there. Tony pulled up to his pits and opened the hood right away. As you know, as that may have happened, usually if it blew up real bad, you know, he would have probably went right behind the wall. But they're trying to see what might have taken place.
Usually, when you see that much smoke, it's not a terminal problem. Well, perhaps Ralph can bring us up to date on this situation, Ralph.
Well, he's taking his helmet off right now, Larry. Tony, did you have any idea it was going to go?
No, it just started vibrating, and there she went. It was all over.
Which is a clue that it's somewhere deep in the engine, I take it?
Yeah, it probably broke a rod or broke a crank or something. Something let go.
28-year-old Tony Raines, who last week in that slugfest of a race finished in 5th. He came into today's race ranked 9th in points, 7th overall in laps led, and 5th in the percentage of total laps completed. That percentage will drop down significantly today because we're not even to the 1/4 point.
There are a handful of young drivers like Tony Raines that entering the 1992 season had never won an ASA event. He was one of the ones that ranks at the top as a prospective ASA winner, and it's not going to come here this afternoon at Calgary.
Well, Mike Eddy has taken over the lead. Jay Sauter now finds himself in 2nd position. Weekly, well, we have a feature here that's brought to you by the Clark Oil people. Mr. Shaheen does it and always brings you up to date on something current in ASA.
The Czech List is brought to you by Clark Oil and Refining Corporation, refiners and marketers of high-quality Clark gasoline. A crash can instantly take you out of a race. If your car is badly damaged, it can even force you to miss the next event while you struggle to get your wrecked racer repaired. The American Speed Association has designed their new AC-Delco Challenge Series machines with this in mind. The car is divided into 3 sections: rear, middle, and front. This allows the teams to cut down on the amount of time required to repair a badly damaged car. For instance, if the front of the machine is crushed in an incident, the team only needs to disconnect the front section and replace it with a new one. A process that Tom Harrington knows all too well after his hard hit last week at I-70.
Well, after we got at the Ed House shop in Michigan, you just cut the front part of it off. The car's in really 3 sections. We replaced the front clip and left Ed's shop Thursday afternoon on our way over here.
This process is not only economical in time, but financially as well, as it can keep a team from having to build a brand new race car.
Well, you can see the car is 2-tone this week. When it crashed last week, it was 1-tone, bright blue. And boy, if they had a week just getting to this race. Have you wondered how dedicated the typical ASA racer is? Well, look at this. This is Tom Harrington's route to get to this Calgary race. First of all, leaving Kansas City in that race last week, they had to drive home to Nashville because the team, as well as Tom, had to work Monday and Tuesday. So after work Tuesday afternoon, they headed up to Ed Howe's shop in the Beaverton, that's near Saginaw in Michigan, another 11-hour drive. We're not even headed toward Calgary yet. Then they stayed up 2 nights working on this car. 4 of them worked in shifts. 2 would work and 2 would sleep. Thursday, they got in the car and headed for Calgary. Just a 39-hour drive. And incidentally, they came all the way to Calgary, made 3 stops for fuel, 1 stop for a formal dinner. They stopped at KFC one time. And of course, tomorrow, Monday after this race, they got to go back home. They're all the way out here, back to Nashville. That'll be a 34-hour drive, a grand total of nearly 5,000 miles, 95 hours on the road.
All of which begs the question, why didn't they just roll out the backup car? Well, in ASA, most of the teams, especially with these brand new cars in 1992, only have 1 race car. Dennis Lampman, who crashed last weekend, did build a new car in time for this weekend, but Harrington had to do it literally from what was remaining of the devastating crash of last week.
And Scott, I asked him, I said, well, why did you go to all that effort? I mean, that is a lot of driving for, you know, to come all the way out here for 1 race. He said, Larry, the reason why we did it is because everybody said we couldn't.
Well, he's like everybody else. He's a real racer, and they come here to race. ASA has treated him real well as they have with everybody here, and that's what it's all about. Is we're all here to race, and they go do what they have to do. The crews just work phenomenal hours, like you pointed out there, 2 shifts, and it just works out good. Them guys are really devoted to the teams.
Just an update from down at track level. Harold Fair is reported probably has a broken rocker arm that could end his day if so. And Scott, this subject of dedication, and a lot of people who watch these races, if they watch a race at Daytona, for instance, yesterday, or maybe Saturday Night Thunder, or there are a number of races on TNN also, they don't quite understand there's a whole lot more than just putting nice colors on the race car and shiny numbers. It is more than a full-time job.
It is. A lot of these guys have a regular job that they work 7 to 5 or whatever it is, and then they come to the race shops at night, put in another 6 or 8 hours, if we're lucky to get away with that minimum of hours. But these guys really work hard. A lot of them aren't in it for any expense or anything like that. They're just out there devoted to the racing team.
Well, right now, everybody on this course is worried about the black and yellow number 88, because when Mike Eddy is this fast, this early on, he could be very tough to beat. And geez, I hope they all don't blame me for this.
Long way to go, though. We've just reached the 53-lap mark, a little more than a 1/6 of this race completed. Jay Sauter now trying to keep in touch with Mike Eddy's flying, car number 88. See the entire field coming past the start-finish line. At least 20 cars still remaining on the lead lap.
Brief rundown of the cars up front. Eddie Sauter, Holzhausen is still 3rd. John Benson Jr. is 4th. In 5th right now is Tim Steele. 6th is Jeff Neal. 7th is Bob Seneker, who's made a jump up recently. 8th is Glenn Allen Jr. in the track auto number 66. 9th is Tom Harrington. And 10th is Sterling Marlin having a pretty good race.
There's the battle for 8th, 9th, and 10th position. Glenn Allen Jr. holding up Tom Harrington.
And we saw that feature about Tom Harrington and his car being painted slightly different this week than it was a week ago. Well, Glenn Allen Jr. is in a bright blue car, not the usual predominantly white, red, and blue trim track auto car. Same reason. They've had to work on this car all week, plus try and make this 2,000-mile drive, and there was just enough time to get the car rebuilt, get the number 66 and the track auto on it. They did not have an opportunity to repaint it, but had to get the car on the racetrack because Glenn is up there in points, and it also kind of gives you an idea of how the ASA crews are really trying to support those companies that are supporting them on the racetrack.
And you've got to be impressed with Sterling Marlin's run this afternoon. Only a couple laps on the track in this race car before the start of the race this morning, after coming all the way from Daytona Beach. And Scott, that's a team car to the Jim Weber automobile. You've been in this car.
Yes, I have. This is a car that we started out the season with. Sterling got here this morning and he made those few laps and was very, very comfortable with the car. In watching the car right now, I see a whiff of smoke out of the back of it when it goes through the corners, and it's something that we don't want to see, but hopefully it isn't going to be too serious. We put a new engine in that car last night, so maybe it's just a little bit of an oil leak.
Great joust right now between the two of them. The double-digit 2 of Sterling Marlin on the inside, the double-digit 6, the track auto car of Glenn Allen Jr. on the outside. That says Anderson 400, by the way, on the side of Sterling Marlin's car. That's an ASA race coming up a little later in the season in the High Bank Culture Mile.
Well, what is it they say? That's like flying jet fighter planes in a gymnasium?
Dick Trickle's term, I guess. Jet fighters in a gymnasium. Pretty appropriate.
Mike Eddy continues to lead. He's now opened the gap to about 4 car lengths over Jay Sauter in car number 1. Those two have separated themselves from the 3rd and 4th place cars, and we've had a real shuffle there. Johnny Benson Jr. has picked up the 3rd position with Tim Steele right behind him running 4th. Jeff Neal is 5th. Bob Seneker up from his 12th starting position to run 6th. And Steve Holtzhausen has fallen all the way back to 7th. I don't think that's necessarily an indication of the problem with the race car. It's just not handling like it did at the start.
In 5th place, you mentioned Seneker in the Lane Automotive Ford Thunderbird is moving in on Jeff Neal. Probably the star of the race last year in that split, or last week rather, in that split wire machine. Year and a half the race won.
Conversation with Jeff after last week's race, and the alternator was a problem in the car. It overcharged and then went the opposite way and killed the battery in the car, and that's what ended up being his problem.
We were all very puzzled because it seemed to be running off song, and at first we were blaming the engine, but it didn't turn out to be that all. They took the engine back, put it on the dyno Tuesday, and ran all day.
Last year in this very event, Jeff had the fastest car for much of the race, but he had a continuing or recurring ignition problem, something of a different nature.
Well, Scott and Rob, correct me if I'm a little off on my numbers. Last year we set a record for number of yellow flags. There were like 17 a year ago.
Try 19.
Try 19 a year ago, and we hadn't seen that, Scott.
No, the race right now appears to be going real well. Anywhere you look on the racetrack, though, there is a battle. You were talking about Jeff Neal, Bob Seneker. A little earlier it was Steve Holtzhausen and Bob Seneker. Everywhere around the racetrack, Sterling Marlin and Tom Harrington are just having a great battle out there. So it's...
Our intrepid reporter down on the pits is fighting the buzzing out on the racetrack and the buzzing around his head. Mosquitoes have been horrible up here. Hospitality has been great, Ralph, but how you doing down there?
Well, we're bobbing and weaving away from these giant killer mosquitoes that have invaded us down here on pit lane. But outside of that, we're doing a lot better than Mike Eddy is right now. You might remember last weekend at I-70, we reported that the temperature gauge had pegged in the number 88 Pontiac, and that Mike just went on through and the engine held together. And Howard Thomas, the crew chief, said, well, Mike, I think we've got a bad gauge. Mike said, no, it was just the engine, but it held together. Well, guess what? The engine gauge is pegged once again. Howard Thomas asked Mike where the temperature was. Mike radioed back, you don't want to know. And so Howard thinks he can finally convince his boss to let him change that gauge next week.
Now, Scott, they changed engines this week, so it doesn't seem like it should be an engine problem.
No, and I asked Mike about it, and he said that in practice and everything that there was absolutely no problem. The motor ran at a good cool temperature, and he didn't believe that the gauge was the problem, but evidently with what's going on here today, it has to be.
Well, he may do what he said he threatened to do last weekend. He told us as soon as he saw that gauge get so high, he was tempted on the next pit stop to ask for some tape to cover it up so he wouldn't be tempted to look at it.
All right, 72 laps into the books of this 400-lap race in Calgary, Alberta. This is part of the Players Limited Challenge Series here in Canada in 1992. We'll be back with the rest of this. Stay with us. And this is a place where I think you could almost come once a month. That's nice coming up here.
There's the battle for 5th and 6th positions between Jeff Neal and Bob Seneker. Bob started in the 7th row, outside of that row, 14th position. And Larry, he's trying to keep 2 streaks alive here today. He's won the last 2 ASA events on this racetrack, and all 4 previously ASA-sanctioned races at Calgary have been won by Troop Motorsports cars. The first 2 by Butch Miller, and then the last 2 years in a row by Seneker.
That's Seneker in the Lane Automotive Ford Thunderbird, the traditional blue, yellow numeral number 84. And Seneker's out of control in corner number 4, up against the wall. He cuts down the angle. It was not a very severe hit, but it appeared as though a tire had gone down on Bob Seneker's car. Scott.
Bob's very fortunate there. It wasn't a right front tire that went flat. Yesterday in practice, Bob broke a right front hub going down into the backstretch into turn 3 and was very, very fortunate to save the car. Here again, he's very fortunate. The right front tire blew right in the middle of the turn and just did a fantastic job saving the car.
Great camera work. I mean, we were trained right on Bob Seneker, and it almost appeared as if that happened in slow motion, as if he may have had some warning that something was going wrong in car number 84.
Well, a tough break for Bob. They had a problem last week that they took the blame for, which knocked them out early. Here's again a look at it on replay, Scott.
Yeah, it is. You can see the tire going down right there in the center. Like I say, Bob does just a fantastic job not locking the car up, not turning it into the, letting the car turn into the wall. He lets go of the brake and turns it off of there. Bob was able to bring it down into the pits, get the tire changed.
Well, Scott, we've talked to some of the drivers, and this has been kind of a recurring problem in the last couple of races with these new cars. Apparently, there are some suspension pieces because of the narrow tread, the narrow track on these race cars, that the tolerances, the clearances are not as great as they were in previous years.
Well, we narrowed the car up like 4 inches, and the sway bars and A-frame shock absorbers, all that stuff had to be moved in with it, and it just got everything real tight underneath there and brought things closer together. And some of the new cars, we ended up having to, really watch clearances and keep things away from the tires.
Well, there's wholesale work going on down in the pit area. Everybody has ducked in. Bob Seneker, of course, was the first one to duck in because of his problem there in the high side of corner number 4. He just barely got out without losing a lap. And ironically enough, though that Seneker was the reason for this yellow flag, he may come out of this leading all of the other top contenders in this race because he pitted first.
He well may. And this is an unusual pit configuration. It's an oval within an oval on the backstretch, and it shortens the racetrack for the drivers trying to avoid losing a lap. It's an oval, and you lose literally the entire length of the straightaway on a pit stop. You've got to have perfect, flawless pit work not to go down a lap here.
Well, there's a little bit of a difficulty getting Jeff Neal refired, but he's back out, and he comes out just in front of, well, I don't know. It's very confusing on this racetrack compared to a typical ASA race because you're allowed to exit on that back straightaway and stream underneath the pace car and the rest of the cars that are out on course. So this will be up to official timing and scoring to keep this all sorted out. Now, we mentioned that Jeff Neal almost won his first race ever last week at Odessa. Jeff Neal is here. He's another top contender here this week. We asked about his CZ91.
Yeah, it was tough. We had the race won. It was real hot, a lot of exhaust temperature in the car. I got real tired. But the thing that hurt the most was just losing the race.
Well, Jeff Neal, who was just devastated when he got out of that car a week ago, they found out that they have a clutch problem now this week. He was stuck in 4th gear, and if that's his case, pit stops are going to be a serious problem for him the rest of this day.
It's interesting to see if Bob Seneker is going to be allowed to stay there. Making that pit stop early like that is not allowed to improve any positions. When you have a tire problem or you have something dragging on your car, you're allowed to come in early and make the repair so you're not dragging anything around the racetrack, but you're not allowed to improve your positions.
You know what I think, and it would be interesting to check with official scoring. Seneker may be right there on the tail end of the lead lap. Isn't that a possibility? Because all of the cars in front of him are a lap down.
That's right. And I think that might be the way it is.
And with Mike Eddy right behind Bob, that could well be the situation, but we'll check it out. You're looking at Michael Waltrip in the pits. The car was dropped off of the jack as he came in for this pit stop. This car is running out of the ETR Racing Stables, the same stables that fields the car for Tony Raines this week. Michael, as well as Sterling Marlin, of course, raced in Daytona yesterday. Did not have an opportunity to practice or qualify. Were inserted in this race as alternate starters, not alternates, but provisional starters. And a little bit of a problem in the pit area during that stop.
Scott, what does it do to you sitting up here when you look up at that scoreboard 100 laps into this race and you see in the #1 position a car number 53?
Well, it looks good. The only problem is Jimmy has got himself a lap down. He's not used to pit stops, and he came into the pits real slow. He had a flat left rear tire, and it caught him sitting in there coming in too slow. And he's leading, but he's on the tail end of the lead lap, as you're seeing.
Talking about Jim Weber, Scott Hansen's replacement during this period of incapacity. We like having him up here anyway.
Yeah, I think that's something we're going to have to double check. Weber right now is 4th in line on the track, and Eddie is just 3 car lengths behind him. And I don't think we have a confirmation as to whether or not Weber is leading this race or if he is indeed on the tail of the lead lap. We'll definitely have to check on that.
I think he's leading because he came in under a previous caution. Therefore, of all the lead lap automobiles, he was in the soonest and back out the soonest. And I believe he is the leader of this race. Bob Seneker is the one I'm not certain about in car number 84. We're now getting word from scoring that he is, in fact, 1 lap down.
All right, the 91 laps. Remember, we're going 400, so we're coming up on the 1/4 mark point. And Rob, you're getting a confirmation on these scoring questions?
Yes, Bob is 1 lap down. However, Scott, I remember last year he was 2 laps down at one point and came back to win here at Calgary.
Bob runs very, very strong up here at Calgary. And, you know, he's going right now. He's having a heck of a battle with Mike Eddy. Mike's car just looks so dominant. He was able to catch Bob in some lap traffic, but he just drove right around and looks like he's going to drive away.
That's Jay Sauter. He's been right there near the front since the green flag fell. You wonder about Jay. Are they running exactly the race that they want? You also wonder about Johnny Benson Jr. That car has been so strong for most of this season. Breakdowns have taken at least 2 wins from him. He's got 3. You wonder, is Steve Benson doing exactly what he wants to do?
He's being uncharacteristically patient here this season, but like I said at the top of the show, he's got an engine that is suspect. I think he's going to nurse it as long as he has to. Now Jay Sauter working on Bob Seneker. Remember, Bob is 1 lap off the pace and just out of camera range. In 4th position, or 5th position, is car number 66, Glenn Allen Jr., whose Track Auto Pontiac got a fabulous pit stop.
Jim Weber, who is leading this race, number 53. We're looking at Jay Sauter, who is running 3rd right now. Benson is 4th. Seneker again is a lap down. Jim Weber, who is leading this race, he has raced the last 6 nights in a row, including Friday night at Elko, Minnesota, on a dirt racetrack. I guess that's 6 of the last 7 because he didn't race last night, although he practiced here yesterday. So he's had a very, very busy week, all-night flight to get here to Calgary. And Johnny Benson Jr. way up out of the racing groove.
The track appears to be coming apart a little bit. You know, we're talking about what's called marbles. When you get up out of the racetrack, out of the racing groove a little bit, the cars want to slide up, and they're very, very hard to control up there.
Johnny Benson Jr., the leading winner so far in 1992. Ralph.
Well, Larry, they had a push in that first segment of this race in number 21 of Benson. They thought they might have fixed that by changing the tire stacker on that last pit stop. But as you can see in that last lap, they're in a little bit of trouble in turn number 4. The other car we wanted to talk about was the number 1 of Jay Sauter, which is currently running in 3rd. Jay is having braking problems. He has overheated the brakes, and you can see as he gets up underneath Bob Seneker that he's having a bit of a problem trying to get that car hold down as he goes into the corners.
Ralph, we're still on Benson, but I wanted to ask you, it seemed confusing to us up here with this almost reversal in the pits. How did it go down there? Was it smooth?
It is very confusing as far as being the pit reporter, I can tell you that much, because you really got to keep an eye on your backside because you've got them coming in from everywhere. But most of the drivers are doing an exceptional job of watching where they're going. The only problem really is the fact that it's very dusty down here. And when they come barreling down pit lane, it kicks up a lot of dust, which gets in your eyes and makes it difficult to see, and can also blind the other drivers who are coming in and exiting out of the pit lane.
I think that the pits here at at Calgary, Cayuga is the last Canadian place we visited, could possibly play a bigger role in this race than any other race on the televised ASA schedule.
Jim Weber's got a problem in car number 53. He's down off the pace. He's coming on pit road. We saw him wiggle just before coming in. He had held his own versus Mike Eddy for quite a while, and it looks like the right front corner is down on that race car.
It does. It looks like an A-frame or something was possibly busted on the car. I don't look like it has a flat tire.
We've had that problem several times so far in the 1992 racing season. Scott, do we need a beefier right front suspension on these machines?
Well, the suspension is all new, and it's just stuff that we have to test. And I guess I was wrong. It looks like the tire was flat, so we had some suspension problems, and they're doing great jobs with working at it now, redesigning hubs and suspension parts. So the whole car was redesigned this year, and a lot of the suspension parts along with it were redesigned. So it's just stuff that we have to go out, test, and make everything right.
Second place in season points right now is Johnny Benson Jr. Third place in season points is Jay Sauter. Second race right now is Jay Sauter. Third is Johnny Benson Jr., but they are ready to face off at center ice for second place.
After skating out of the groove about 10 laps ago and losing nearly half a straightaway to Sauter, suddenly Benson has found the combination in car number 21 as the Port City Berger Chevrolet is really pressuring for that number 2 position. And that car working very well down on the bottom. It may be a situation where with fresh right side tires it pushes, meaning the front end simply doesn't want to turn, but as the tires heat up, the car starts to handle better.
It is amazing how much ground that he lost when he had that minor detour in corner number 4 about 6 laps ago, how quickly he has recovered.
Apparently when he got up in there, he built up the tires with rubber, and it takes a few laps to go out there and just take the car and slow it down a little bit, get the tires cleaned off, and bring it back into the racing groove.
Well, confirmation from the pit area, Jim Weber did stop because of a flat tire. Flat tire also is what we believe took Bob Seneker out of the top 5 positions. And incidentally, the third voice that you're listening to is that of Scott Hansen, who was leading this point standings in ASA, the AC-Delco Challenge Series, when he crashed in Michigan about 3 weeks ago, suffered a broken leg, and likely will be out for the rest of the ASA season.
It's interesting, the different lines driven by these drivers battling for second position as they close in on lap traffic. Jim Weber again out of shape in turn number 2, gathered it in after nearly hitting the outside retaining wall. But back to this battle for second position, and finally Benson takes over the spot. The car seems to be stronger going into the corners. Sauter's works the best coming off onto the straightaways.
And they are definitely both moving in on Mike Eddy, although Mike Eddy may be attempting to protect that very delicate machine. He has an overheating problem or perhaps a gauge malfunctioning. We'll be back. They're just a bit dicey right now up front, moving through a flock of the cars running now 1 lap down. Our race leaders, Mike Eddy in the black and gold Nationwide Pontiac number 88, and Johnny Benson Jr. in the Port City Berger Chevrolet red and white number 21. And anxious moments there.
Kind of like the infomercial slice and dice up in front. Eddy has just been able to get through traffic a little more quickly than has Benson, because Johnny was definitely closing in. We're still showing 13 automobiles on the lead lap. There is the second place car, number 21 of Johnny Benson. Jay Sauter is still right there. He runs third in car number 1. And he is putting yet another lap on Trevor Siebert's car number 45. So his streak of 7 successive wins here at Calgary is going to come to an end. Now behind Siebert, who is at least a couple of laps off the pace, we'll go back, and behind him in 4th position is car number 85. That is the Tim Steele automobile. There's Leighton Reese. He's a lapped car.
The Item Chevrolet, that's their new sponsor they have picked up this week, and they're very happy and proud to have a very traditional ASA and late model and stock car sponsor in the Midwest. That's Leighton Reese.
Tony Roper in car number 10, the Childs Tire Chevrolet. John Childs has fielded cars in the past for Kenny and Rusty Wallace. He had the best rookie finish of the year a week ago at I-70 Speedway, finishing 4th in the Western Auto 300.
I guess that also means that was his best career finish, in that he is a rookie.
Without a doubt. a couple of cars lapped, at least one lap down. Terry Wendy, car number 2 in the Clark Oil machine. Terry has found the adaptation from the open-wheeled midgets to the stock cars a little bit tough, but everybody says he's smooth and is just learning as he goes. Bob Seneker in car number 84. He is a lap down after hitting the wall early in the race.
There is the 4th running car right now. Tim Steele, of course, he is still on the lead lap. We have 13 cars officially on the lead lap, and Steele has been right up there since the drop of the green flag, but the race has been turned in by Gary St. Amant. Yes, the number is 7, that's the same, but this is a different car for Gary. This is the Gillen Enterprises number 7 car out of the Twin Cities area, and Gary made some last-minute changes today to the suspension, and apparently it really worked because he has turned in the race of this afternoon. Starting in 17th, he has now moved up to 5th.
I wasn't very happy with that car yesterday. They changed the right rear shock and the rear panhard bar on car number 7 for that Justice Brothers Gillen entry. It has proven to be a very good decision. We've got a car up against the wall coming up turn number 4. That's Michael Waltrip in car number 30, and he was on the lead lap.
Mike Waltrip was unofficially being shown in 13th position. Just quickly to give you a rundown of the rest of the cars on the lead lap as we take a look at the younger Waltrip brothers. 6th is Jeff Neal. 7th, Tom Harrington. 8th is number 22 of Sterling Marlin, turning in a good ride this afternoon. 9th, our pole setter, Steve Holtzhausen. Car number 78, Glenn Allen Jr. in the Track Auto Pontiac is 10th, and number 66. Dennis Lampman is 11th. As we look at those cars running 4th, 5th, and 6th, it's very tight up there. 12th is Tim Fedewa, still on the lead lap. And as mentioned, Michael Waltrip was the last car on the lead lap.
Tim Steele, Jeff Neal, and Gary St. Amant. Jeff has picked up a position. Scott, these guys have really come into their own in the last 2 years in ASA.
They have. You know, they took all the anxiety away from what they were doing, and they settled down a little bit and are learning to race the cars and race the racetrack. And we're finding out that you have to be in the race at the end of the race to be up front. And it's really matured them quite a bit in the last year or so.
Now, back up front, in case you were wondering, we kind of were. Well, how is Benson doing in that quest going after Mike Eddy?
Is this a redundant story or what? Remember just a few weeks ago at Milwaukee when these drivers did a dual pirouette through turn number 1 spinning? Benson went on to win when Eddie retired with an engine problem, but here they are again, the 2 drivers that have been up front all season long.
Hey, Scott, who's had the better year? Eddie's leading in points, Benson's won more.
Well, it's hard to say. You know, those 2 guys have been racing real hard all year long. And, you know, John's had some misfortunes, and Mike had, you know, a couple tough breaks. Mike drove away from Johnny here a few laps ago, and I thought his car had come around to him all at once. John is right back there racing him hard. Looks like he's going to go around the outside.
Now, we told you that the laps go by quicker than a Bronco bucking out of the gate if you were downtown at Stampede. And we're up to lap 133, and it seems like the last time I looked, we were at 80.
Michael Waltrip has come on pit road in car number 30 as we continue to chronicle this battle out front. Car number 55, Tim Fedewa, about to go a lap down. That is the 12th place car. Tim Fedewa giving ground grudgingly to Johnny Benson Jr. He battles back on the low side of the racetrack, but he'll not be able to fend off the onrushing 21 of Benson.
Now, Benson's had such a great season. It's hard to remember that he had not won a race until this season.
He had run as a rookie and then last season in a sophomore campaign for the Troop Motorsports team. Now he fields his own race car. He's got very little help, like Mike Eddy. He does most of his own work on his own race cars. And Scott, people have even begun to compare the driving styles of these 2 drivers.
Well, Tim's a real hard racer. You know, he's out there giving it everything he's got. And, with the quality of driver that he is, he's venturing out into other areas. And, that's what it takes to become a good racer. You know, you have to get out there and you have to run cars of different natures, and you know, he's just performing real well.
John also with those 3 victories leading the ASA in money winnings thus far, and would like to vault into the points lead in the Players Limited Cup, the series within a series, these 5 Canadian races comprising the richest stock car racing series in Canada, the 2 here at Calgary, the 2 at Cayuga, and the first road race in ASA history coming up later this season at Bowmanville, Ontario.
The track,
John, go ahead, Scott.
The track apparently is coming apart a little bit. The cars, when you get up in the corners, are really moving around, really getting loose. Sterling Marlin, just a few laps ago, got himself caught up in that outside groove a little bit and really lost a bunch of ground here to the leaders.
This is one of the more active racetracks in North America. They have a weekly show here in point of fact, during the height of the summer season, which of course isn't as long as it is down in, say, Tampa, Florida, they run 4 times a week, Thursday through Sunday night. So the track gets a lot of racing in a very short period of time. Well, 4th place, I guess you'd say it's like up for grabs right now.
Jeff Neal in the split-fire Pontiac taking over that position as he slides past the number 85 machine of Tim Steele. And now he'll try to set sail for the leaders. The top 3 cars running right together. Benson now seems comfortable with about a 5-car length gap. And Jeff Neal, again, hoping that this will be his best performance, a win.
All right, 4th and 5th place, and there's some speculation that perhaps the track breaking up is contributing to the blown tire situation. We'll try and stay on top of that. Incidentally, we had a conversation with not only ASA, but with also the Goodyear people about the phenomenon of blown tires last week at Odessa. And to their credit, both groups, ASA as well as Goodyear, faced it head-on, and they said things like that, yeah, sometimes happen when everybody is pushing against the envelope, and we're working to make some changes, all for the better. Now, we've talked about this John Benson situation. He's had such a great season, but we asked him, John, what's the secret, and is it tougher to stay on top and keep winning, or is it tougher to get there? How about winning?
Yeah, I think when you're not doing good, there's a lot more pressure on a lot of people, and you know, it's like anything else. If you don't have any pressure on you, it's easier to do your job, and where you got pressure on you, it's harder to do your job. You know, so it takes good people to work together without pressure, and it takes better people to work together even with pressure, you know. So we're going to have pressure coming, and we've got good people to take care of that.
Larry, a very interesting aside on this tire story that seemed to rear its ugly head last weekend at I-70. In contrast, I was talking to Jay Sauter's people, and they said if you scuffed in the tires earlier in the weekend, in other words, if they weren't sticker tires, brand new tires, they had no problems with blistering. So that's something that we ought to look into as well.
All right, John Benson Jr. putting a lap on the Wins Extend number 11 Lumina of Matt McClellan out of Dayton, Ohio. Man who's won 7 midget championships in the last decade in 3 different divisions of racing, as Benson completes lap number 148. And he puts himself into a position that he's been in so many times this year. But in his shadows is Mike Eddy, and based on what we've seen from Michael this year, Mike may be letting Johnny lead at this point. Well, only time will tell. Jay Sauter turning in a great race. He's in a very challenging 3rd position. And in 4th at this point has become Jeff Neal, who has moved up a couple of spots in the last 25 green flag laps.
I'm seeing Sterling Marlin creep into the picture. I'm not sure he isn't in the 4th position in car number 22. Maybe we can get a confirmation on that one, but Marlin is flying. Well, now we're being shown he is 1 lap down. The 9 car still on the lead lap. Benson, Eddy, Sauter, the 5 of Jeff Neal, car number 85, Tim Steele, 5th, Gary St. Amant, 6th, and Harrington, the story of the weekend, is 7th, 8th is still Holtzhausen, 9th, Dennis Landman, 10th, 1 lap down, Glenn Allen Jr.'s car number 66.
This racetrack has a pretty healthy bank on it, but it's just a phenomenon as some racetracks, as you are built. If they're high bank, the groove seems to work in 2 or 3 lanes up the racetrack. Sometimes on a high bank racetrack, it's right down at the bottom. And you run the bottom here at Calgary, you've got something you can lean on in groove number 2, but to venture outside of the 2nd groove is a little touchy, isn't it?
It's real hard here. You know, with the track coming apart like it is, you know, that's going through a lot of the drivers' minds right now. You know, they know the track's coming apart. They know that those tires can cut those stones can cut the tires down at any time. So to go out into that 2nd groove, everybody's got to tiptoe pretty good.
The 3rd and 4th cars in that serial on your screen. The 78 of Steve Holtzhausen, who almost spins, is fending off the number 9 of Dennis Landman. Remember a week ago, he too nearly got on his head of brand new race cars, this car number 9, and he's really giving it a good ride this afternoon.
At 7th, 8th, and 9th, the number 91 car of Tom Harrington. He had that 95-hour trek to get to and go home from this race. He is right now in 7th place. In 8th is Steve Holtzhausen, our pole setter, who ran 2nd for the early laps of this race. And in 9th is number 9, Dennis Lampman. 53, Jim Weber, is running about the same speed, but Jim lost some time in the pits when he had a tire going down.
That top 5, gentlemen, or inside the top 5, we should say, the only 2 teams that are running on scuffed tires right now are the number 1 car of Jay Sauter and the number 85 car of Timmy Steele. Everybody else is running on sticker tires right now, including our top 2, John Benson and Mike Eddy.
Well, they're called stickers for two reasons, in case you wondered. Number one, because they seem to stick on the racetrack better when they're new. And number two, because they've still got the labels on them, the stickers.
Well, John Benson Jr., the Grand Rapids Flash, continues to set the pace here in Calgary. We're up in Alberta. We hope that you're home in your family room having a very pleasant 4th of July weekend. Come back for the finish. It's a couple hundred laps away. The Calgary Stampede, a very important week-long celebration, one of the most significant in all of North America. And while we were at that break, some drama. The bucking bronco of John Benson Jr., our race leader, threw its rider. That is to say, a flat tire coming out of corner number 4, very similar to the one that we saw hit Bob Seneker a few laps later. Benson went out of the racing group, went up and scraped the wall. It didn't appear as though there was any serious damage, but there you see him pulling back into the pits. All the cars are coming back. Scott?
Well, they're coming in the pit lane right now, and okay, we're back to Johnny here. He's going through turn 3, and it looks like, again, he got up in the outside a little bit, and Stone probably cut that tire down.
Almost a carbon copy of Seneker's incident a little bit earlier, and he didn't seem to hit the wall very hard, but with these delicate right front suspensions, he very easily could have bent something. All of the leaders now moving back onto the racetrack as Benson's car finally gets underway, and I think he'll be able to do so without losing a lap. Scott, I might ask you this question. They say the big rig trucks that weigh about 5, 6, 7 times as much as these cars do were here recently, and they didn't cause this kind of problem with the racing surface. Is it a function of the adhesion that these cars are able to get?
What happens is this tire that we're running is a pretty soft tire, and what happens, the tire goes over the surface and it wants to pick the stones up out of the asphalt. That's what creates the track to come apart.
Well, more of the cars that have continued in this race are taking this opportunity to come into pits. There is Jeff Neal. That number 5 car, he has been running in the top 5, and I do not believe, unless I missed him, did he pit during this segment?
I'm not sure that he pitted. If he did, he got the best pit stop of the bunch, as he is shown as the race leader in car
Maybe he
5.
did. Maybe he did execute it.
The word coming from the Johnny Benson pit and his crew chief that there is no suspension damage to car number 21, at least as far as they know.
Well, the track crew is out trying to solve as much of this problem of the track breaking up as they possibly can. They're very quick on the spot. We're under yellow here at Race City Speedway in Calgary, Canada. Well, Jeff Neal is the race leader after this recent round of pit stops. He comes blasting out of corner number 4, gets a tremendous jump on the rest of the field and streaks to a comfortable lead. Although, how comfortable can it be when you can see the black and yellow number 88?
And one car missing from the racetrack in that lead serial. Johnny Benson Jr.'s car number 21, having replaced the tire right back on pit road. Now he goes 2 laps down. Shortly it will be 3. So there was some damage to car number 21.
Just unbelievable how Lady Luck has frowned on that team. John Benson Jr., you can see the work being done on his Lumina right there. They have been so fast all year, and this, by my count, Rob and Scott, is at least the 3rd race that has been taken away from them when it looked like they were in a posture to win.
We got into this conversation a few weeks back, you know, when the point leader is, when it comes into a serious conversation about point leaders, it seems like every week it comes back and it bites the point leader and it takes him right out of it.
Battle for the lead now. Jeff Neal on the high side. Mike Eddy all over him in car number 88.
Now, Ralph has a report for us down in the pit area.
Well, initially, Larry, they thought they didn't have any suspension problems with Johnny Benson's car. Chris Bradley's the crew chief. Chris, what did you find this time?
We broke the bolt that holds the sway bar there on the right front. We had to come in and replace it. We can't ride it like that.
Outside of that, everything else is okay now?
Not that we know of. We'll hear more as he goes.
Johnny is back on the racetrack, and he is right in front of the lead pack of automobiles, 2 laps plus that distance off the lead. So I think his chances of a win this afternoon diminished greatly. And Steve Holtzhausen is slowing on the backstretch as we continue to watch that battle for the lead. The pole sitter has got some problems.
And it's a good one. There's Jeff Neal. Remember, he's never won one of these races. Mike Eddy, who won just last week, he's won more than his share over the years. Mr. ASA is a guy that I like the name I like to give him. And Jay Sauter, there he is in the black, red, and green trim number 1. He's 3rd place. He, too, has never won one of these races. And to see the performance of Neal and Sauter really in 1992, it's kind of hard to believe that they've never had an opportunity to grace victory lane.
Steve Holtzhausen rolls on pit road in the Baker Motorsports entry, car number 78. It appears once again, right side tires the culprit.
175 laps to go, 25 laps before the Wins Halfway Challenge. As Jeff Neal holds on to that, it's an extra $500 should he have the opportunity to hold on here. But Mike Eddy, he also probably smells those $500.
Watch Jeff. He's using every bit of the racetrack plus. The last time through turns 3 and 4, he got their left side tires down literally into the grass. I don't think this time, well, he does continue to hold off Eddy.
He must be aware of what's coming up. 177 laps. Boy, this is going to be difficult to hold back Mike Eddy for 23 laps when he's faster.
You would think with the new tires, Mike should be able to come on up there and drive right around, but the track evidently isn't showing that the new tires are all that much faster.
Well, now he is alongside going through turn number 1. Now it is a foregone conclusion. Mike Eddy will emerge from turn 2 with the lead, and Jay Sauter comes right behind Mike.
I think that was just a bit of insurance that was sort of written into that contract by Mike Eddy. When he went into number 1, he said, I need to have a little more room here to make sure that I get by Jeff. And by the way, you're going to use lane 3 this time.
There was a little comment brought up about the pass that Jeff made to Mike last week at Odessa. Mike made the comment that in passing him, he got a little bit too close for what Mike is used to, and that may have been a little bit of a factor on the pass here that, you know, paybacks are just part of the game.
A couple of laps ago, Dennis Lampman and Michael Waltrip had this little set to going down the back straightaway. There's Michael in the yellow car getting a little bit out of shape. Dennis has to take evasive action. He drops down to the inside, and they went down into corner number 3, and Dennis leaned on Michael a little bit, but they shook hands afterwards and went on to racing. And we have a spin in corner number 2. No harm. It appeared to be Tony Roper, the Child's Tire Pontiac that had its best finish last week, best finish of a rookie this year. A little lazy spin coming out of the second turn.
Well, last weekend, not only the best finish, I believe the only finish of the season for Tony Roper, who entered the 1992 campaign with great expectations of being the rookie of the year, but they have had one mechanical difficulty after another. And finally, the ability that this team really has came to the surface last weekend at I-70 Speedway with a very impressive 4th place finish.
And I call it a Pontiac. I stand corrected. It's Chevrolet. I want to make sure that everybody in Michigan is happy, particularly those in and around the Detroit area.
Have you been surprised, Scott, with the parity among the makes this season? The Pontiac, Chevrolet, the Oldsmobile, and the Ford. It seems like, you know, we've had winners and top running cars in all 4 makes.
Well, the way it started out with Bob at Nashville, everybody thought that the Ford was going to be just a dominant factor. They're allowed to run a little bit bigger carburetor on the Ford engine, and you know, with Bob, the great veteran that he is, you know, we just figured that that would be the car and the team to beat. But Johnny Benson come back and surprised everybody. We didn't think the Chevrolet Lumina was, if anything, it was the worst aerodynamic car out there compared to the Oldsmobile and the Pontiac. And, you know, he's won, what, 3 races now and just dominated the series. But everybody, you know, it's been a real good, equal racing year so far. And, you know, I think ASA and their rules is what kind of makes that.
Why haven't the Fords done well since that first race of the season?
Everybody's coming into the pits. We'll get back to that Ford story in just a second. You see all the race leaders taking this opportunity to come in here on lap 183. Ralph.
Well, Howard Thomas's crew is going to change left side tires now for Mike Eddy. They got the right side tires on the last stop. They'll top them off with gas. The tires go on. The car will come down off the jack, and Mike Eddy will return to the action. Oh, and he kills it just for a second. They get him fired up again, and he'll follow Bob Seneker back out onto the racetrack.
Follows Bob Seneker, but I think that means that Seneker made up a lap. Now, I don't know if Bob was 1 lap down or 2 down, but we'll have to check on that one. Bob Seneker may have just picked up one of his lost laps.
He hasn't been a factor, which takes me back, Scott, to that question. Do you think it's a situation with Ford, they're just kind of behind a little bit in the development program? Because it's only been in the last year or 2 that they have really made a concerted effort since the Mark Martin days to be at the forefront of ASA competition.
Well, I don't think that the Ford is really a problem right now as far as the engine's concerned or bodies. You know, they've got as good as anything out there right now. You know, Bob's had some other problems. He had a rear end failure. He had some hub and tire failures, you know, that's kept him out of it right now. You can't count Bob out of anything. You know, he can be so strong everywhere, and I don't think we've seen the last of Bob Seneker by any means this year.
Well, there's the leader. Tim Steele now in car number 85 has picked up the point with the pit stops.
Now, Tim Steele, there's Trevor Siebert on the outside. Here is Jeff Neal. Now, we mentioned he almost won the race last week. This 26-year-old is currently ranked 6th in points, but he is one of several drivers, these 3 in particular, that we are calling on the brink, Scott. Jeff Neal, Jay Sauter and Tony Raines. There are their finishes in 1992. But we feel that each of these three, and there are a couple others we'll mention in a minute, have shown the speed to win a race. The question is, which one of those three will you think will be the first one to break into the ASA win column for the first time in their career?
Well, I'll tell you, the way Jay Sauter's been running the last few weeks, I've almost got to put my vote with him. Tony and Ernie Roselli from the ETR bunch, you know, they've got such a good program, and with Ernie as the owner there, I mean, he just works so hard to give those guys what they need. Tony's just a great driver. You know, he just sticks in there till the very end. And a lot of times you don't see him all day long, but there at the end of the race, he shows up. And, you know, between those two, you know, I think that's where it's going to be. You know, Jeff Neal, he's close, but, you know, he just needs a little bit more seasoning.
You know, it's interesting that those are the first two names that you mentioned. I suppose I was influenced by last week, but I felt that even had that been a race that had not been fraught with attrition, that Jeff had a good car last week. Now, there are some other people. Steve Holzhaus, he started on the pole today. Tom Harrington, consistently in the top 10. Todd Forbes, who out of Bryan, Ohio, is not here this week. And Tim Fedewa. So there are about 6 or maybe 7 or 8 guys who could win a race this year, but we think that those three, well, the next first-time winner will come from them.
There's a name you didn't mention, Larry. The second place car number 9 of Dennis Lampman. How about that?
That's true.
The field is streaking away. The cars in the back are given an opportunity to run. The race leader is, however, Tim Steele, and a confusion traffic jam on the front straightaway. There is Steele going to the high side of Holzhausen. Steele is the race leader. A little bit of confusion in this restart, but we're going to get it all settled out here in just a second. And on the inside is Holzhausen, is trying to hold back Steele. Steve Holzhausen wants to get that lead lap back.
He has done so. He will become the 8th car on the lead lap if he's able to stay ahead of Tim Steele. He'll hope for a caution flag. You saw the jostling and bumping on the restart. The number 53 machine of Jim Weber just did not find the fire, and he's brought that car on pit road.
It looked like he had the transmission jammed up. He's on his way out again right now. I believe what it was, Jim's not used to, like I said, pit stops and showing the cars. What it appeared to be is he just hit the car caught in lower gear.
There's the snarling stampede. Remember, we are in Calgary behind the guys up front. There is Seneca, of course, blue number 84. Tim Fedewa, that bright yellow number 55, running right behind now. Around Fedewa, goes to the high side of Seneca. Jay Sauter in the KC Motorsports, lap number 1, still very much in a hunt. He runs there on the high side. Also in that group is Sterling Marlin in a white blue trim number 22. And Gary St. Amant. I really like the race he is running today. Meanwhile, pit side, familiar name, Waltrip, first name Michael. Here's Ralph Sheen.
Well, Larry, he's got oil all over his helmet, and Michael, that's not where it's supposed to be. What went wrong?
Well, that Pimgo, it's good wherever you put it, you know. I wanted a little bit on my head to try to calm my hair down. This is a great place to be. ASA racing is a lot of fun. This is my first chance to do it. I got to work with Ray Dillon. He's a legend in this sport, and I really enjoyed that. The car was running fairly decent. We cut down 2 tires, and then the oil was leaking real bad, and there towards the end of my run, I was about to crash every lap, and we knew something was wrong. We didn't know quite what. Under that last pit stop, we found it, but it was a lot of fun. Like I said, Mike Tools is on the car today. Pimgo is real near and dear to my heart. I want to say hello to everybody down in Houston, Texas, with them. All the boys back to the shop. Sorry about yesterday. We'll get them, I swear.
Well, you know, Michael, he's always trying to be the first with the latest GQ stuff, and now it's oil in the hair. He's there.
I'm sure that Chuck Ryder and the rest of the Bahari crew people over in Charlotte, North Carolina are proud of their boy. That's an interesting way of getting in a plug from the sponsor.
You can see Mike Eddy has finally dispatched with Bob Seneca. Remember, Seneca is at least 1 lap off the pace and did not want to give up another lap to Mike Eddy. 1 lap down now, plus the distance on the racetrack. We're looking at the battle for 2nd and 3rd positions right now. It's Mike Eddy 2nd, Jay Sauter 3rd. He now will have to contend with Seneca as the number 85 machine of Tim Steele has pulled away. Well, I said 2nd, 3rd. That's 3rd and 4th. Is Dennis Lampman still holding his own in car number 9 in that 2nd spot.
Dennis had a great pit stop the last time. Cars really have to slow down to get the pit stops in here at Race City Speedway, and Dennis got in and out very quickly. He found himself, was deposited there in 2nd place.
3 laps away from the halfway point in this race, and Mike Eddy appears to be not going to be able to lead this race as he has so many times this season at that midpoint.
Yeah, it's going to go to Tim Steele if right now is any indication. Steele slows down a little bit coming out of the second corner as we look at second running Dennis Lampman. Steele, by the way, is still on the outside of Brad Loney coming out of the fourth corner. There he is, completing lap number 199. There's Tim Steele, HS Dye and Engineering race car headed for that halfway challenge.
Two cars right behind him, the 53 of Jim Weber, car number 33, Brad Loney, who's been the most consistent or as consistent as any rookie this season. And then Country Hearthbred's CR Asphalt machine, car number 33.
Lap 200 is now in the books. Tim Steele continues to lead. That's Weber right behind him. Johnny Benson Jr. Really trying desperately to make up. Rob, do you have a confirmation? Is he 1 or 2 laps down?
Well, he is just a little less than 2 laps off the pace.
Okay, Tim Steele out of the state of Michigan is this week's Halfway Challenge sponsored by Wind. The winner of this week's Hot Shot Halfway Challenge is Tim Steele. He wins $500 from Winds for leading at the halfway point of today's race at Race City Speedway in Calgary, Canada.
Johnny Benson just came so close to going into the
spin in corner number 2. You can see the number 35 car of Dave Sorensen, a new entry to Mike Sorensen make that. Dave Sorensen was a basketball player. Once played at Ohio State University. Sorensen is from Rochester, Minnesota, and has taken over the car that we are accustomed to seeing Donnie Zweifel drive.
This Lampland Racing Chevrolet came to ASA for the first time in 1992. Zweifel apparently just not feeling that comfortable with the traveling distances and the rigors of what it takes to run these ASA events. He looked good on the racetrack, but a young man now taking over the driving duties as Mike Sorensen has a lot of dirt track racing experience and just trying to feel his way today on the pavement.
Well, the yellow flag continues to fly over this crowd, and we'd gone through the first 100 laps and was mentioning that we'd set a record for the number of yellow flags in an ASA race a year ago of 19. It looked like the race was going to be very smooth, and boy, since that time we've had an outbreak.
You can see Johnny Benson in car number 21 sitting right behind Tim Steele. That caution could have been advantageous for him as he had gained a lap, but he slid up out of the groove, and Steele put him yet a second lap in.
So Tim Steele looking for the first win of 1992, although he has picked up a career win. Hopes that today becomes number 2. He came a long way, as all these competitors did. Let's see.
Tom Harrington showing on the leaderboard up in the 4th position with 7 cars still remaining on the lead lap. And he, like Mike Eddy and Jay Sutter there running 1st and 2nd, did not come on pit road during this most recent caution.
Okay, Mike Eddy with 37 career wins. Jay Sauter with none to this point. Lead this race at lap 215. So still a long ways to go, just past the halfway point. Mike Eddy, the leader of the overall AC-Delco Challenge Series points. Coming into today's race at Race City Speedway, Jay Sauter was 3rd in the points. So here are 2 of the drivers who have had a very good season today. Now another driver who is having a terrific race is Gary St. Amant. He is not driving his normal car. He has had a very good year in the Players Limited Cup standings. He won the first race at Cayuga. And we asked him, what are you doing coming way out here to race somebody else's machine?
Well, there, you know, the Players people were good enough to put a good series here together for us. And after winning the race at Cayuga, you know, we definitely needed to come out here, make an appearance. And actually, we got us a good race car. So hopefully, you know, we can keep the 7 car up front and win this Players Championship.
From 17th to run 3rd, and he hasn't gotten there because of the attrition of others. He has raced there, and I'll tell you what, he's only about the proverbial football field behind Mike Eddy and Jay Sauter, and should he win this race today, boy, would he be in the driver's seat for that Players Limited Cup.
And that football field is shrinking. St. Amant is narrowing the gap between the first 2 automobiles, Mike Eddy and Jay Sauter, who have let Johnny Benson go. I don't think they consider him to be a factor for the win today. And Scott, it almost appears to me as if Eddy's car is not handling as well as it was earlier in the race, as Jay Sauter is running all over the back end.
Jay's car Mike's experience that's keeping him behind him, because Jay's car definitely is much better.
Eddy, but as Sauter's in trouble in corner number 4, he spins. A heavy crash in corner number 4 at the bottom. Jay Sauter spun right into Sterling Marlin. I call it a heavy crash, quasi-heavy, as they basically hit fender to fender. A little more damage to Marlin's car than Sauter, but oh, what a very sad moment for Jay Sauter. He definitely had a handle on this race. It was Sauter, St. Amant, and Eddy. but it just got away in corner number 4.
And that's a disappointment for Sterling Marlin in car number 22. We hadn't mentioned him much since the early part of the race. He was just one lap down in the 8th position. And I'm amazed that Jay Sauter is able to hustle that car around as quickly as he is. It appeared that contact that he made might have taken him out of contention, but he continues to move around the racetrack, closing up the gap, and he'll be on pit road with all the other leaders.
Well, I'll tell you, I think it's a matter of if the rest of the leaders pit, he's going to also, but I don't know that he would even pit if nobody else comes in. Let's take another look at it, Rob.
Well, there you can see him sliding up out of the groove in turn number 4. Now tries to save the car, tries to correct it, and kaboom, he just got out of shape. And it did appear that there might have been contact between Jay Sauter, car number 1, and the lap number 37 of Dave Anspaugh. Maybe we can see on this angle. They are up at the top of the screen.
Jay's car just gets up in those, as we said before, what you call marbles, and the tires build up with the rubber and the stones, and there's just no way that he can control that car. The car just, it's like the tires grow in size, and it gets just terrible slippery, and there's just really not much you can do about it.
Scott, from a driver and a guy who's been a team manager also perspective, I get the feeling that everybody's making too many pit stops today. Is there a need to come in every time we have a yellow flag?
I was thinking the same thing myself, unless they're doing it strictly to look at the tires, to see if the stones are doing anything to them, cutting them down. Some teams may elect to put them back on because the track normally does not wear the tires out there.
I mean, Eddie came in this time. Sauter, of course, had to check the damage. Tim Steele came in again. Jim Weber, who has been digging all day to make up for lost laps early in the race, he pitted. Tony Roper, although he did have a spin, but I'm sure they changed the tires during the last yellow flag. But it just seems like everybody is coming in every time. It has to be a matter of them checking the tires, although it's interesting speculation. Well, we've completed 224, working on 225. It's a great afternoon here in Canada. Hope you're enjoying it wherever you happen to be. You think about Olympics, you think about the Stampede, you think about the tall country, the Canadian Rockies, and today you think about the American Speed Association stock car racing. Now, here is Jay Sauter. Here's a quick look again at the incident. It was mentioned that maybe Dave Anspaugh was involved. I see no dark green number 37 involved in that shot as Sauter loses control coming out of corner number 4, giving Sterling Marlin no place to go. We go back to green, and the race leader is now, guess who? Gary St.
Unbelievable. This Justice Brothers Gillen Enterprises race car, we mentioned, had been driven earlier in the season by Jerry Foyt. Tim Steele drove it when his car was not ready to go at Tri-City Speedway during the Michigan swing. Qualified third and was running well until he was sidelined with mechanical problems late in the race. But St. Amant giving its best ride, I think, in the last several seasons.
Also, every once in a while, as you zoom in on the leader here, you're going to see a little bit ahead. And we have a spin in corner number 4 up against the wall. A light tap. That is Leighton Reese, the road racer, guy who specialized in running sedans in endurance races in the last couple of years, does a spin coming out of the 4th turn and back into the fence, although, again, it was not a hard hit. And it sure appeared to me that he found something on the racetrack, some marble somewhere, and it just put him out of control.
Did you see the car that went by him as Reese slid up to the wall? It's blue, and it carries the number 84, and Bob Seneker is all of a sudden in contention, back on the lead lap.
Well, we were mentioning about St. Amant. He won, of course, that first race at Cayuga. Seneker is now on the lead lap, and not even at the tail of it now. Seneker is going to move right up behind the leaders. He appears to be perhaps headed toward a potential pit stop. We'll see what he does as you see Leighton Reese coming into his stall here in the pit area in the Iden Chevrolet. Leighton Reese out of the Twin Cities area. He's a very experienced race driver. Lots of road racing, as we mentioned several times, and ice racing. And here's an opportunity to look at this racetrack, Scott.
It is, as we were saying, the stones are just laying up there. The cars go up there in that second groove, and if you get a foot out of that second groove, the car just gets away from you. From the best of them to the rookies, it just doesn't matter. The cars are so hard to control, and they end up as a result spinning out.
Well, he had a great day yesterday. He just missed out by a few feet, Ralph, the guy standing next to you, didn't he?
He sure did, Larry. A fine second place at Daytona, and then you can see the remains of this battered race car here today, Sterling. A bit of a tough day for you, but was it fun?
Well, it was, you know, first time we ever came up here, and you know, Jerry Gundam and these guys give me a great race car. And it was running good. We lost the brakes and I had to back off and lost the lap, and the brakes would come and go. And if I had brakes, buddy, she'd dig. And we had a good race car. And, Jay Sauter went there and slow car ran him up and loose stuff, and he got in it. Come back across track, was nowhere for me to go. But I hate it. It was just a good race car.
Yeah, that was a great comment, buddy. She was digging. But, Scott, I got to talk about the comment that Steve Holzhausen made. I'll try and do this quickly. We're getting ready to go back to green. They were saying, hey, Steve, you're in the car that Scott drove last year. Scott set some track records. And, by the way, these are new ASA cars. And so, guess what, buddy? You are now a track record holder in ASA. And, Rob, what did he say?
I don't know.
Oh, he said
cool.
Cool. That's all it was. Just one word, cool, as we go back to a cool green flag. Still working our way. It's a struggle. It's like going up the side of a mountain trying to get to lap number 300. And on top of this race is Gary St. Amant. And in second place is the former New Orleans Saints pro football player Tom Harrington, who crashed heavily a week ago at Odessa, Missouri. They spent all week getting here. They repaired that car, practically rebuilt both the front clip and the rear clip. And right now he's in second place. And I'll tell you, he's not running that much slower than Gary St. Amant.
He's running very well and digging, trying to get his lap back. Is that cool? Steve Holzhausen sits right behind Gary St. Amant, the leader.
Another car that's running real well is Dennis Lamb, number 9. He's running third place, but he's running right to the front.
Dennis has been extremely impressive. You look at the top 4, Gary St. Amant, the 91 of Tom Harrington, the 9 of Dennis Lamb, and the 5 of Jeff Neal. Only Gary St. Amant among them has an ASA victory in their racing careers.
It's a little tied up front. There you see the leaders going to the high side of the Winds Extend Lumina. Mr. McClellan from Dayton, Ohio. Toledo and Cincinnati, right on Interstate 75 in the great Buckeye State. I say that because that's my home, as well as a graduate of Ohio State University. Unfortunately, the Ohio driver is now going one lap down to the race.
Another Ohio driver, Gary St. Amant from Columbus.
And speaking about Ohio State, that's probably our best Ohio State fan in this race. Well, we mentioned Tom Harrington. There he is. He's had a great year with a brand new car, his first one ever. And we asked him, yeah, you're running great, but are you surprised like we are?
Well, I am surprised and I'm pleased. We put a lot of effort in this year, and Neil Hanowick and Jimmy Michael are building our engines, and that along with a new crew chief is, I think, the key to our success this year.
And Scott, I tell you, I will really believe, yes, you've got to be a good driver, you have to have good equipment, but I think that scenario is repeated in division after division of racing. It's the crew, particularly on these races where you have to go 2, 3, 400 laps. It's the crew that wins the races.
It is. You know, the pit stops are so critical. You know, you can go out there and race as hard as you want. In the pits is where it's all about. Those guys work so hard, and, you know, they dig into their work and just get you in there and get you out. They work hard in the shop all week long, drive you to the races, and you know, they just never give up. And my team and every team out here, there's the guys that are involved in all this. You know, they all deserve credit.
Setting up those cars doesn't make a difference how good of an athlete you are. If that car is not performing at least as good as 2 or 3 other fast-running ones on a given race day, you don't have a chance.
That's right. You know, that's where the crew chief comes into play. And right now, ASA racing, crew chiefs are just as important as they are NASCAR. We are running for great purses, and we're running against some great competition. And you need to go out there and get yourself a good crew chief that can not only set up a car, but just like they were doing with Timmy Steele, they have to talk him through it. They're settling down, and there's more to just setting up a car.
Jeff Neal has moved right in behind the car number 91 of Tom Harrington, and they're battling for that second position as Gary St. Amant has opened up about a half straightaway lead. And Jeff is running very well once again in car number 5 after kind of being out of the picture for a while on that split fire spark plugs Pontiac during the middle stage of this race. Meanwhile, Dennis Lamb and Mike Eddy and Jay Sauter continue to run on the lead lap. And if you're wondering about Sauter, the car seems to be performing quite well.
Okay, Harrington is in second. See him moving there to the high side of Terry Wente. In the BFI Recycle now, number 91, Tom Harrington. In third is Neal. In fourth place is Dennis Lampman, the electric one, is in fourth right now, just about a car length ahead of Mike Eddy, who's in fifth. And how about it? Is Steele? He's still in the lead lap. I assume he must be in sixth position.
I miss Tim Steele, still running solidly on the lead lap. He's sixth. Jay Sauter, the last car, well, next to last car now on the lead lap. He's seventh and right behind Sauter. Bob Seneker's car number 84. And there it was. Jeff Neal dropped to the low side in turn number 2. You can see Johnny Benson. If you've just joined us, he's a couple of laps down. He came on pit road. Look at this battle for second position.
Boy, you could not squeeze a dime between Harrington and Neals. They came down the front straightaway the last time. Harrington, he did not want to give it up. He was really bulldogging down there, just like you would on a cattle here at Stampede weekend, right?
Finally, Jeff Neal gets the job done in car number 5. Now he puts a lap on Mike Sorensen, working his way up toward Gary St. Amant, the leader of the race.
I tell you, Steve Holhausen is just working Gary St. Amant over something terrible. He's looking to get that lap back, and I'm not sure how many laps he's down, but he's got a fast car, and he's just working Gary over. And I wonder if Gary isn't just going to move over and let him go.
I don't know. If he's 1 lap down, and probably Gary's in communication with his pit crew.
Gary St. Amant doing a great job in this race. He seems to be avoiding the track braking problem. Ralph, what do you hear down there?
Well, this is Jim Daly, his crew chief this weekend. Jim, what's Gary doing to deal with the breaking up of the racetrack? Is he trying to find a different line?
Yeah, see, that thing is getting so full of all kinds of rubber, and it's just full of dirt. And he just can't stay and get up on the top. He's got to stay way down in the bottom.
Is there anything you can do the next time he comes into a pit, some adjustments maybe that can help him move up a lane?
Well, unless they clean the track, there's not much we can do but change the stagger a little bit and hope that he stays running the same speed that he's running now. We ought to be in pretty good shape.
Well, there's Gary St. Amant continuing to lead, but he is being caught up by Jeff Neal in car number 5 as Glenn Allen Jr.'s Track Auto Pontiac appears to have a problem as he comes on pit road under green. He was 1 lap down, shown in 9th position.
Looked like there's some smoke coming from the tail of it.
3rd place, matter of fact, 3rd, 4th, 5th, right there. 91 Harrington, 88, 80, and 9 Lampman.
And 6th, there's Steele as well.
What a great battle here, right in the latter stages of the race, 250 laps in. There are 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th on the screen.
And Lampman is staying right with Mike Eddy. He is the surprise of the race.
He is. Harrington was running much quicker a few laps ago. He was running in a runner-up position, and ever since Jeff Neal got by him, time has slowed down. So obviously that car is a little bit off song from what it was just a few laps ago, but he's still in the lead lap and hoping against hope for a yellow sometime here soon so he can check out what perhaps his problem is.
You know, we were talking about crews and how hard they work. Dennis Lampman's car that he's running in today was not a spare that was sitting there in the garage. It was a bare framing chassis that was laying there in the corner that he had wrecked from Milwaukee. And himself and his crew just did one heck of a job all week long, just putting that car back together so they could be here.
Scott, the relationship between driver and crew chief that you were talking about, when you have a disagreement, who makes the call?
Well, it's a very hard call to make, depending what it is and where you're at. You pretty much have to listen to the crew chief. I mean, he knows what's going on out there. Just from the standpoint of where we're at right here, you can see so much that goes on a racetrack around you that you don't see as a driver. I mean, it's just unbelievable to watch so many races within the race here. And the crew chief, you know, as the race goes on, you have to follow and let him make the call.
We've had a crash coming out of corner number 2. It's Jim Weber, and it perhaps is the most serious crash of the afternoon. You can see Weber's car sitting down on the ground, serious damage to the right side. We cannot see the right front, but apparently that is where Jim went into the wall. Jim Weber, who summers in Roseville, Minnesota, that's in the Twin Cities area of Minneapolis, St. Paul, actually makes his hometown not too far from the Wisconsin Dells at Menasha, Wisconsin.
Well, he must have made rather hard contact. We can see where he hit the wall, and he did not go very far down the racetrack after he made contact with concrete.
I just happened to look up, and Jim was another victim to the marbles or the stones that are up on the racetrack. The car got up there, and it just took off in a sideways position. You have no control over the steering, or you know, you can't stop it or anything. It just goes to wherever the car feels like it, and eventually it's going to contact something.
Now this is sure to really have an effect in the standings again as the pace cars picking up the leaders, but the leaders have already made their intentions. No, I thought they were going to go into the pits. They have dropped down to that lower line. St. Amant leads this race. Mike Eddy is right now in 2nd position. I don't know how he got ahead of Jeff Neal. I think Jeff thought that all of them were headed for the pit, so he simply moved over and allowed them to go by. Now Johnny Benson Jr. is also up among the leaders in that red and white number 21. He has laps down, however. Lampman, remember, the bright orange number 9, he's on the lead lap, as is Tim Steele, white number 85, and Bob Seneker. but I do believe that most of the leaders, led by Gary St. Amant in the blue and yellow today, number 7, will be headed for the pits. And if they do, we just happen to have an intrepid pit reporter down there. And Ralph, they're below that lowest white line, and here comes Mr. St. Amant. So you're on, buddy.
We are in Gary's pit as Jim Daly and a mixed bag of crew members await the arrival of our current leader. St. Amant using crew members from his normal team and some people that work normally with the Gillen crew. So a cross combination of uniforms here today as they change right side tires, give them a full fuel load, clean the windshield, and Gary St. Amant will come back down off the jacks in just a second as they get the right front on. A bit of a problem there. It is fixed. Off he goes, and Gary Smont goes back out onto the racetrack.
Well, we are in the high plains country. In the background of St. Amant's pit stop, perhaps you could see what's going on. Looks to be about 30 miles away. Heavy rains coming down out of the mountains. Now, rain was predicted for later this afternoon. We are past the halfway point, and should that rain descend on this racetrack, there is the possibility of 2 things happening, a delay, or maybe this could be called a race. But there is rain coming down out of the mountains, and whether or not it'll hit Race City Speedway, we'll just have to wait and see.
There were some very interesting developments on that pit stop during that round. Mike Eddy stalled the engine on his car, and Jay Sauter got a fabulous stop and will take over 2nd position.
Yellow flag continues to fly as they're still picking up the crashed car of Jim Weber on the backstretch. No report of any injuries for Jim, so we'll take this opportunity to take a break. You can go to the refrigerator and come back and see us. We'll finish this race.
Glenn Allen here with us, and Glenn, your car was running just fine, and then the engine quit on you. Did you have any idea that it was going to seize up on you?
No, not really. I just looked down. I seen the water temperature starting to vary and the oil temperature starting to vary. So best thing to do is just shut the track auto Pontiac down. But we had a flat tire early in the race and went a lap down, but we stayed out and survived with a caution and come back in and got it straightened out. So we was going to have a good day, but we're sidelined.
Glenn Allen also was racing hurt. He probably had the worst injuries of all the crashes of a week ago. At first they thought it might have been broken ribs or at least cracked, but they went to the hospital before the race day was over, in case you were watching. We were unable to document it at that time. He was released before 7 p.m. that night and headed back home to Cincinnati, but they were pretty sore. And I watched him for the first time this weekend when he was getting into the seat and putting the seatbelts on, and what routine, I'll tell you that.
I got a kick out of our visit to the hospital, Larry. You and Ralph and I went, and boy, those nurses said, he's gone, but he's going home to Ohio, and he's going to Canada to race. They knew his life history. Yeah, the St. Mary's Hospital in suburban Kansas City, Missouri. And here is the top 10 unofficially after 267 laps. Neil now the race leader, Jay Sauter second. Mike Eddy, by the way, got ahead of Jay on this pit stop. Gary St. Amant now being shown in 4th. Tim Steele in 5th position. Rounding out the top 10, Tom Harrington is in 6th spot. Dennis Lampman 7th. Bob Seneker is the last car on the lead lap. He's in 8th position. Tim Fedewa 1 lap down in 9th. And Steve Holtzhausen now back to just 1 lap off the pace in the 10th position. We're now also going to see, Scott, just how fast drivers like St. Amant and Steele are, because Eddy and Sauter, who were leading this lap leading this race a little earlier, are now ahead of them. What do you think? You think that St. Amant and Steele have the horses?
Well, I'll tell you, St. Amant is, he's just a super driver. He's out there and he's jumping into a complete strange car and just doing a super job with it. Jim Daly's got to get a lot of credit for bringing that car up here and having it prepared the way he is.
Jim Weber took a hard hit. You can see him there talking to crew members sitting on the tire, and it's taking 2 wreckers, Scott, to remove that car from the racetrack.
Yeah, it is. I'm sure the rear end and the on the right rear and the right front suspension, because it looked like it went in there and slapped the right rear and then went over and slapped the right front. And those are some of the worst types of accidents that you can have, is when the car hits real sideways like that.
Well, you can see the remains of Weber's car, and there is extensive damage to that machine. Remember, these ASA cars are built in 3 parts. There's a center section, actually the envelope cockpit where the driver sits. There's a front clip and a rear clip, and hopefully that's just a matter of only the front clip and the rear clip. Sometimes the body damage makes it look worse than it actually is. Well, we continue under yellow flag. We're keeping an eye on that rain, which seems to have dissipated just a little bit, so we will go 400 laps as originally planned in Calgary. wagons, each pulled by 4 horses and up to 30 horses on the track at any one time. And it was exciting.
Now here's from 30 horses to 500 horsepower per vehicle as we go back to green flag racing with Jeff Neal out in front and a car up out of the group, Tony Roper's car number 10.
Tony is desperately trying to get back down. Oh, he wants to go to the pits. He's pulling right down in front of the field. Dennis Lampman and Bob Seneca had to take evasive action. And poor Tony, he was really hung out to dry. He wanted to get back to the inside, but there was just too much traffic.
Tony has a flat right front tire, it appears.
Well, we mentioned Trevor Sievert a little earlier, that Trevor is a man who was undefeated on this racetrack. Here is truly one of the brightest potential stars in North American racing, and right now he's standing by with Ralph.
Well, Trevor, they got the Dynamax entry about set to go again. What was wrong?
Well, it was really hard to tell. I was running with a flat engine about the last 40 laps before I came in. It was getting progressively worse, so I finally decided to bring it in. It was barely running at all. We were stalling on the pit stops and everything. We pulled it in, we've diagnosed it. It looks like it might be a dead battery, of all things. So we swapped another one with another broken car. Hopefully we'll get back out and solve our problem. We'll finish the race.
Well, Larry, they got it buttoned back up. We'll let Trevor climb inside and get going.
All right, Ralph.
I think Mike Eddy's got a problem in car number 88. That car literally stopping as it goes down into the turns. Now watch him as he moves into turn number 3. Jay Sauter drives in right behind him. That time a little bit better, but both Sauter and St. Amant have closed that gap between them and the second place car.
Well, let's also go back to those drivers on the brink. We have lost Tony Raines. The other two that we highlighted were Jeff Neal and Jim Sauter. Scott, your pick was Sauter. My pick was Neal. I don't think I ever pinned you down. Did you have a pick among the 3 of them? Who would be the next to win their first ASA race?
Well, I believe that it would be Jay Sauter. I would not want to discount Jeff Neal, obviously, but Jay has been closer more often this season, and I think when you're in the top 2 or 3 all season long, eventually you're going to win one. And I'm amazed at the fact that this car is still running as strongly as it is, as hard ahead on contact, Scott, as he made with Sterling Sauter's car.
I would have sure thought there'd been more damage done to the car with this, like you say, the amount of contact that took place. Jay's whole team, you know, when you talk to them, when you talk to the crew members and everything, their whole team seems like it's come together so much this year over the other 2 teams that we've had.
He continues to run in that 3rd position, and we watched them sit at dinner last night. They seem to not only be a cohesive team, but good friends, and I think that is very, very important.
Okay, 2, 3, 4 on the screen. There is Eddie Sauter and Gary St. Amant, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in the race.
We've got Howard Thomas with us here, who is the crew chief for Mike Eddy. Howard, the guys upstairs are saying it looked like he might be having a bit of a problem. What's wrong?
Well, the car's got a little push right now, but we're all going to have to stop one more time, and hopefully the last stop we'll be able to fix it.
Scott, let me ask you a question as a driver. We've seen this track breaking up. We've seen it affecting a lot of cars, cut tires. In ASA, you can only change 2 tires on any one pit stop. Now, as Howdy said, 1 more pit stop to the checkered flag. How do you determine whether you change right sides or left sides this last time on pit road?
Well, the track, like I say, normally isn't real hard on tires. I believe everybody will go with right side tires to adjust their stagger. Why the track is coming apart, we used to have this problem up at Calgary. I don't know if it's something to do with the material that's used in the asphalt up here, but you know, it's so ironic that both Canadian racetracks would come apart this way.
Steve Holtzhausen continues to run strongly in car number 78, putting the pressure on Gary St. Amant, but he is 1 lap down in that pole sitting on. Still trying to hang in there. There's Mike Eddy putting a lap on the 55 machine of Tim Fedowa, who's being shown in the 9th position, 1 lap down. Still 8 cars on the lead lap, and Dennis Lampman and Bob Seneca are still well back in the serial file, as they did not get particularly good restarts.
Here's a recap on everybody who's still on the track, unless something happens, and this has been a day where a lot of things have happened, so do my best. We'll get back as far as we can. Neal leads the race. He just put a lap on Leighton Reese. Johnny Benson Jr. still out there, but a couple of laps down. Terry Wenty. We have a spin in corner number 4. I jinxed him, guys. I said that, boy, every time you start trying to build a story. Something happens. We've had a spin in corner number 4.
And that is Steve Holzhausen, who was really working hard on Gary St. Amant. And I'm sure Tom Harrington thought, oh, no, not again, as he really jumped on the binders to avoid the spin in car number 78 and definitely moved to the inside of the track down on the grass.
Maybe the yellow will give us an opportunity here to run down everybody. Pick up the leader again as we look at Holzhausen, who's back underway, probably headed for the pits. Let's take another look at this spin. There it is, Rob, on the high side of the track.
Again, I think he was just trying the high groove to make the pass of Gary St. Amant, trying to pick up that lost lap, and right in front of a couple of other cars. There he is. You can see him sliding right up into the
Scott, watch this move at the end by Holzhausen. Straightens those wheels up and keeps the car away from Harrington. He gets 50% credit for that miss.
You bet he does. You know, he saw the cars coming at him. He turned the wheels straight and got the car rolling straight back down the track to try and avoid any further contact or damage with the car.
If the cars come on pit road during this caution, as it appears the leaders will, this, I would assume, Scott, should be the last stop of the day.
I'm sure they could go the distance from here on in. They're all going to make that, I believe, a right side tire change to get their stagger right, finish, fill it up with fuel, and just from here on in, they should be able to go with no problem.
Oh, it is a race into the various pit stalls. There's Chip Caputo going to the right front of Jeff Neal. And Scott, as you suggested, they're both going to, all of them are going to the right sides. Neal, Eddie, and Seneca came in together.
Howard Thomas and the crew going to work on Mike Eddy's car on the right side. They get him down and away, and he will come out alongside of Jeff Neal. And the interesting thing there is that is exactly what Jeff Neal's crew needed, was the yellow. Remember, he's still stuck in high gear, and every time he comes in for a pit stop, the crew has to get behind him and push him out. So Chip Caputo and the gang were hoping for a yellow so they could at least have a few extra seconds to get a good push down pit lane to get him going again.
Well, let's see. Neal is out in good fashion, and Eddie is out in good fashion. But let's see, who's the race leader? Hey, he got out first. Guess what? It's Door, Michigan's Bob Seneca. Green flag, and Jay Sauter pulls away from the rest of the field. He stands on the throttle, although can't shake Gary St. Amant. There is Gary in that bright yellow and blue number 7. Sauter the leader. He's never won one of these races. Gary St. Amant, he has got to win in 1992. How about it, Ralph? What's the pit area think? Is this Sauter's race? Well, apparently technical problems going down to Ralph, who was standing by in the pit area of Jay Sauter, who right now seems to have a hammerlock on first place. Oh, Steele gets underneath Gary St. Amant going into corner number 1. They come together. They do a little bit of fishtailing, and a yellow flag comes out.
Looking around the racetrack, there are no cars in trouble, it would appear. And now some debris down in the groove between turns 1 and 2.
But I have a feeling that debris perhaps came from the St. Amant Steele little collision, but the yellow flag came out just about simultaneously with that little incident, so a bit of a puzzle on that yellow.
Gary St. Amant did a tremendous job of not spinning, as he just didn't get into turn number 1 quite as hard as did Tim Steele. The aggressive young man from Michigan made contact. Gary was able to gather it in, and to his credit, Steele backed out of the throttle, allowed Gary to get straightened out and maintain his position.
He did indeed. And by the way, during that brief green flag, Seneca, Neal, and Eddie, they moved up. They got past a lot of the slower cars that are 1 and 2 laps down, and this could be just a tremendous shootout here in these final 100 laps. We have 8 cars, at least 6 of which have shown the potential to win this race.
Johnny Benson, who went several laps down there with the sway bar bolt braking and stuff earlier, he is down only 1 lap down right now, and he could still be a factor in this race.
Tim Steele again will set up the challenge on Gary St. Amant. Car number 85 appears to be a little quicker, and again they make hard contact down in turn number 1.
Well, Steele is gaining the advantage coming out of corner number 4, and Gary is just cutting it close down there, trying to stay on the bottom. He refuses to give ground, and the Columbus, Ohio driver remains in runner-up position, but Steele has got to be scratching his head right now thinking, how should I charge in there to try and get around Gary St. Amant? Meanwhile, let's try up front. Let's try going back down to the pits to Ralph.
Mike Chappie is the crew chief for Jay Sauter. Mike, a bit of an aggressive gamble not pitting. Are you sure you can go all the way?
Yeah, we should. Our tires should be pretty good. We kind of got out of sync with everybody from that wreck. So we know from last year that track position's real important here. So we're just going to gamble. If they pass us back, we'll have to come in and put tires on.
I think all of us are a little surprised at the amount of stability you've got in that car after that hard hit earlier on. It really didn't do any damage to it. Is it really running that fine?
He thinks the toe might be a little bit off, but other than that, I think we're all right.
All right, in this lead group of cars, let's again repeat for you the scenario. There's the race leader, Jay Sauter, head of the pack, head of the race. In second place is Gary St. Amant. Third is Tim Steele. And you're looking at fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh are in there. There is Eddie and Seneca. They're racing for position. Tom Harrington in the blue and white number 91. He's on the lead lap. Dennis Lampman in the orange number 9. He's on the lead lap. And Jeff Neal in the black number 5 is also on the lead lap. So call one of them fourth, fifth, or sixth is probably being a little premature. And also in that group is John Benson Jr., the bright red and white number 21. Perhaps among the fastest cars in the track, still one lap down.
And there's Jeff Neal. He's working on Bob Seneca. Mike Eddy made it look easy getting around for that 6th position. It's now Eddy 6th, Seneca 7th, Neal the last car on the lead lap in the 8th position.
Neal has had a hard time getting through the pack since his last stop. He came in as the race leader. He appeared to have a car that was dominant over certainly Eddy and Seneca. Remember, Mike just wasn't handling well, although we heard they felt they could make some changes to make that car significantly better, and I think they did it.
Well, there's Mike Eddy. We continue to watch his progress. He's dispatched with Tom Harrington. Eddy now has moved into the 5th position, displacing Harrington. But he's got a long way to go to catch the leader, Jay Sauter, who's turning laps in the 17.1 second bracket. There's Mike. 5th position, still 8 cars with a shot at the win this afternoon.
Jay's car is just unbelievable how the left side tires are running right in the grass. He can just keep that car right down there through the whole turn.
Now watch him go down into turn number 3. Well, not this time. And we remember a little bit earlier when he got alongside Dave Anspaugh.
We talked earlier about the coaching that Woody Wood is doing with car number 85's driver Tim Steele. Woody told me earlier, I'm going to keep the reins on him until lap 300. At that point, I'm turning him loose, and he can go for it. And as we are now 13 laps past that mark, you can see Timmy Steele is driving a lot more aggressively as he tries to work his way around Gary St. Amant. So it'll be interesting to find out now. Woody says they can go all the way. Just how much more was left inside of Tim Steele.
Recapping, Sauter race leader, St. Amant 2nd, Steele is 3rd, 4th is Dennis Lampman, 5th Mike Eddy, 6th Tom Harrington, 7th Jeff Neal, and 8th Bob Seneca.
And the late automotive Ford of Seneca is falling off the pace. He's now a half lap behind the leader Jay Sauter, and he probably would like to see another caution flag. He may have gotten the bad set of tires this last go round, and he's right down in the grass. There's the battle. That war for 2nd position between St. Amant and Steele.
That's an interesting one. Gary St. Amant has a lot more ASA experience than does Tim Steele. Tim is one of the new drivers, and St. Amant gets sideways coming out of corner number 4, and Steele is right there in the spot. Takes advantage of the slight miscue, and Tim Steele moves into the runner-up position.
He just isn't waiting. You know, they turned him loose, and if he sees a little bit of a slip, a little bit of opening, he's going for it.
We'll continue to watch now. Let's see if he's able to close the gap on Jay Sauter. It had grown and grown and grown to about half a straightaway after this restart. And you can see the 78 of Steve Holzhausen. He's battled uphill all day after going a lap down. In fact, at one point, I think it was 2 laps off the pace. And that pole-sitting car is still fast.
And Holzhausen is not on the lead lap. Just repeating again what Rob said, he's at least 1 lap down. There was a first and second. That's Jay Sauter, the leader, and second running Tim Steele. Now remember, Holzhausen is between the two of them. He appears to be the fastest car on the track, so if a white car goes around Jay Sauter, it is not a pass for the lead.
St. Amant has slipped back several more positions. You certainly can see him in that frame. There's Tim Steele, car number 85. See right behind him, car number 9, Dennis Lampman is hanging tough in 3rd position, and right on his heels is the 88 machine of Mike Eddy, and he may, in fact, be as fast as anyone right now.
The gentle giant Dennis Lampman is having, I think, his best television race of 1992. That car has been strong. He has been very consistent. I've seen a lot of cars slipping and sliding around, Scott, but Dennis is just rock solid. He's right in there.
Well, I think if you take a look at Dennis, you know, he's in a situation where he can manhandle a car maybe a little bit more than other people. You know, Dennis is no little boy by nature.
Look at this. Lampman and Eddy are moved in on Tim Steele.
And by the way, the rain has dissipated, it's gone south, and we're going to run this thing to conclusion, which comes up in about to 77 laps from right now. Still a good distance, still a lot to be decided.
He is closing the gap on Jay Sauter. I'm sure everyone back there in western Wisconsin is rooting those two boys on.
Mike Eddy slipped up out of the groove and gathers it back in. Johnny Benson is right behind him, but Benson's still one lap off the pace. And Tim Fedewa trying to pass Bob Seneker spins. Two drivers take evasive action up in turn number 3. There you can see the yellow car number 55 as he was trying to pick up a position on Bob Seneker.
Well, the yellow flag comes out with 75 laps to go. Now, this is going to be very interesting. Let's see how many slower cars will be between all the guys in the lead lap. And by my count, there will be no slower cars. Now, Holzhausen's going to be in there. Benson's going to be in there, but they are all laps down. But as far as the rest of the drivers on the lead lap, they should be lumped together.
Well, let's see who elects to stay out as well. Gary St. Amant needed that pit stop. He's dropped to the low side. So will Bob Seneker, as he was not faring very well on that since that restart. And Harrington also having problems.
Boy.
And Sauter stays out.
I am completely puzzled at this time, Scott. Why is Tim Steele coming in? You got to help me out here.
Well, he had maybe the charge that when he took off there, maybe he overworked the car or took the tires off of it. He started going through the pack, went toward the front, and all of a sudden the car stabilized. Dennis Lampman, Mike Eddy, were closing back in on him. He possibly just needs to come in and put some different tires on.
Lampman looks like he's coming in. St. Amant was slowing. I can understand that. Harrington was unable to keep up with the other leaders, so that's understandable. But Seneker is also coming in. So again, among the leaders, Steele, Lampman, St. Amant, Harrington, and Seneker coming in. Ralph, what do you think?
Well, I can tell you about two of them. Bob Seneker had a problem with the push. That's why he's coming in for new tires. Gary St. Amant was waiting. He was going to save his tires till about lap 350 unless they had a caution, and then he was going to charge. They were hoping to get this caution to put on right side tires. Now he can charge a little bit earlier. So Gary St. Amant is still going to be a contender before this one is settled.
Thank you, Ralph. That does answer a lot of questions. So for some of these guys, this was planned, even though, boy, you really got to question the merit because 75 laps. If we go green, which has not been a situation we've had this afternoon, 75 consecutive green laps. But if you go green, 75 laps are quick here.
3 drivers elected to stay out on the racetrack. Jay Sauter, Mike Eddy, who runs in 2nd position, and the 3rd place car of Jeff Neal. And he's finally, after getting out of sync on pit stops, in a challenging position once again.
We have not had an opportunity to run down. We tried this about 25 laps ago. People are still out there. Now, we've already talked about the guys running up front, so I'll try not to duplicate that. Terry Wendy continues to run. Brad Loney, a top 5 finish, one of the highest ranking rookies. He's still on the Speedway. Tony Roper, despite a spin, about 25 laps ago, is out there. Kent Stauffer in the number 90 car out of Ohio. Matt McClellan, Dave Anspaugh, and let's see, Tim Fedewa, despite spinning recently, has also returned.
We haven't mentioned Kent Stauffer much at all in that Flex Technologies Kinetic Racing Engines Thunderbird. And Kent is a real interesting story. He's one of those privateers that runs without any significant sponsorship support, does most of his own work, got some help over the last couple of years from the Kinetic Racing Engines people, and that's worked to the advantage of Bob Seneker, who's now having his Ford power plants built in the same shops.
Well, the green flag comes out. Leighton Reese, who was planning on powering ahead and making a pit stop, finds himself the recipient of the green flag as race leader Jay Sauter goes by about the same time. So Leighton likely will elect to stay out there as Mike Eddy goes by on the high side. There's Steve Holzhausen, remember, a lap down. Johnny Benson Jr. and Jeff Neal.
Holzhausen is the man to watch. That car number 78 was faster than Jay just before we went yellow. And should he get past Sauter and then another caution come out, he would once again be a threat for victory.
He could be a factor here as well. You're right. What's going on now is I would be a little bit concerned if I was in Jay's pit because his car is working so good that he may get a left flat.
Here is Tim Steele moving through the field. There is Bob
Mike
Seneker
Eddy
going to the high
problem.
side.
Mike Mike Eddy with a serious problem. Car number 88 slowing dramatically down the backstretch. He moves into turn number 3, slides way up on the bank. There is something seriously amiss, and I think we may see a caution the next time it is being displayed. I don't know what it is, but Mike Eddy has got major problems in car number 88. And Scott, I'll tell you, it almost looked like he pulled up out of the groove to bring out a yellow caution flag.
He went down into turn 3. The car just would not turn. I believe he has a flat right front tire in the car.
I checked that, Scott, when he went by. Did not appear to be flat. Now, sometimes you guys in the cockpit sense air going out of these tires long before it's visual to us. Now, he didn't pit that first time around. Here he comes again. Let's take a look at Mike Eddy, the right front. Doesn't appear to be down.
Doesn't appear to be, but he has a problem with the right front. The car, even on the slow laps here, does not want to turn as well as it should be.
Yet he continues to go out there and circle around here.
What he's trying to do as we watch him is get up to the pace car so that he does not lose a lap when he comes on pit road. And I think Steve Holzhausen is coming in, the car that was a lap down.
Well, he's got a flat right rear tire.
Yeah,
as a matter of fact, it's off the rim. Holzhausen, there you see it in the shots in the right rear. As Mike Kinner raced up behind him there, didn't realize that Steve was having a problem, was going to go around, and then Mike dropped back down behind him. So the yellow flag is out as Eddy lost the racing line in corner number 4. It'll have to be a quick pit stop for Mike Eddy if he wants to stay in this. Well, Ralph, he's coming your way. It's going to be kind of interesting to see where they go to work. Is that car sitting down perhaps a little bit on the right front?
Well, it sure looks like it is from here, and he apparently radioed into his crew because I checked with Howard Thomas, and he said, yes, I do have a tire going down. They are going to work on that right side. You can see Howard Thomas changing that right front tire as it comes off. The new one going on. They will put a new one on the rear as well. The Baker crew working just across on Steve Holzhausen's car. Now Mike Eddy comes down off the jack, and he returns to the action.
With still 65 laps to go, that could end up being a blessing in disguise for Mike Eddy, as he will have the freshest tires of all the cars on the lead lap. Once we get a restart, it's still Jay Sauter out in front in car number 1. Now sitting right on his heels is the 21 of Johnny Benson Jr., being shown 1 lap down, I believe, in 9th position.
Well, we have a board that we keep track of all the yellow flags at the ASA races, and we are equipped for 12. Well, we have exceeded that number by 2 now. We are up to 14 yellow flags. The yellow flags have come out on laps 30, 43, 83, 162. There was an 80 lap segment right there. 181, 202, 220, 229, 259, 288, 294, 300, 324, and 332. So this race has been interrupted several times. We had just that one period between laps 83 and 162 where we went green for 80 consecutive laps. But for a variety of problems, none, however, have been serious crashes.
Keep an eye on car number 21, the Johnny Benson machine. On the restart, he's got to know that if he can get around Jay Sauter, he is back on the lead lap.
And if he does so, that'll put second running Jeff Neal right behind Jay Sauter.
Neal is second, running in the 3rd position is Tim Steele. Car number 85, Bob Seneker back up to 4th. Right behind him is Dennis Lampman and Gary St. Amant. They run 6th and 7th. Then it's Mike Eddy. Steve Holzhausen, unfortunately, who was in a position to get a lap back, now is 1 lap plus the distance on the racetrack on the pace.
All right, Scott Hansen, from a driver's standpoint, you're sitting in Sauter's cockpit right now. You know that Benson is 1 lap down. You know that Neal is just 2 cars back there. About 70 laps to go, 60 laps to go. What'd you call?
Well, just exactly what he's doing. Just run the car as smooth as you can. Keep it down on the bottom of the racetrack. Make them go around you if they want to pass you. Let them use up their car, their tires to do it. And the thing that concerns me is the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th place cars all have new tires on. Jay's been out there a long time, but if you watch the car, it's still unbelievable how it runs right around the bottom of this racetrack.
If Benson gets alongside, do you let him go?
Definitely. I think you'd have to this part of this stage of the race.
Well, I don't think you really want to challenge the guy who's been so dominant all season long at this point. Well back in the pack, Mike Eddy and Tom Harrington battling their way up through the lapped cars, looking there at the war for 4th position between Bob Seneker and Dennis Lampman's car number 9. And Jay Sauter almost got out of shape in turn number 4, and Benson very nearly got his opportunity.
Eddy, by the way, is about 1/2 of a lap behind the race leader, Jay Sauter.
And Tom Harrington is staying right with Mike Eddy.
Sauter's best finish this year has been a 2nd. He turned that in at Milwaukee about 5 races ago. He's had a 3rd place, off Washburn, the racetrack in Michigan, and a 4th place at the season opener at Nashville. He has finished every one of the races. In addition to those finishes, he's had a couple of 6th and 13th and 14th. And Scott, you were talking about how long he has gone with this set of rubber. Our unofficial count is 80 laps.
And we've got another caution as Steve Holzhausen is spun coming off turn number 4, bringing out a caution flag.
I don't know if he made any contact, but you can see the tire tracks up there in the rubber or stones that are laying up there, and he has a flat right rear tire again.
Well, that's unusual, although that flat could have been caused by the spin rather than vice versa, the tire blowing between the car into a spin. Having just put brand new rubber on, it seems unlikely.
Is there anything component-wise in the right rear corner of that car that could be cutting the inside of that racing tire?
I don't believe so. I think the fact that Steve is just trying so hard to get up there and get that lap back, he's got to run on the outside of the racetrack quite a bit more than some of the other cars, and I just believe that he's up there in the stones are what's cutting the tires.
Well, here's a surprise. Jeff Neal is pulling alongside of the pace car, showing signs that he's planning on making a pit stop. Boy, now this seems very late to me, whereas the round of stops about a lap 325 seemed late. Here's another look, by the way, at Holzhausen.
Well, let's see. There he is, all by himself on the racetrack. And it did look like it, just that tire let go, because he was well under control, running a very consistent line, and suddenly the back end was out from under him.
Well, Jeff Neal has come into the pits, as has Tony Raines at this point, but the big surprise is Jeff Neal. Neal didn't appear as though he could challenge Jay Sauter, but he certainly looked like he was in a posture to hold back, say, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. Ralph, what do you think?
Well, I think what's really interesting is take a look around Jeff Neal's car. There's Glenn Allen Sr. cleaning the wheel, Glenn Allen Jr. to help push him out, members of Tony Raines' crew helping to push him out. Remember, he's only got top gear. They changed right side tires, and Jeff Neal, with a lot of help from his friends, goes back out onto the racetrack.
Very nice. Very, very nice. Consider that to be a warm moment, and I'll tell you, the pace car ducks off the track, and if they go green this time around, Jeff Neal is in deep, deep trouble.
Jeff is in full song, and now has pulled a straightaway on the leader.
Not enough.
Jay Sauter, and there's Benson. Benson with a great jump on the restart, and he will get back on the tail end of the lead lap. Sauter doesn't like it. Jay makes contact down in turn number 2, but all of a sudden, 1st and 2nd positions, and 3rd, and 4th, and 5th, and 6th, and 7th, right in a line. Benson is in 9th position and back on the lead lap.
Johnny Benson Jr. That car has been so strong all year long. You begin to wonder, gee, I wonder how much is left underneath the hood of number 21.
Look at that front 7 cars right together. It's Jay Sauter, Tim Steele, Bob Seneca is 3rd, Dennis Lampman 4th, Gary St. Amant 5th, Mike Eddy is in 6th, and Tom Harrington is in 7th spot.
Pretty soon, we're going to have a dirt track down at 1. I mean, Sauter is really cutting it close.
The car just, as I keep saying, he keeps running it right down on the bottom. I would be concerned for a flat left side tire. He's got it go down.
Absolutely. And he does it lap after lap after lap. And it's obvious that he's not running as fast as at least some of the cars in that lead pack. Again, those first 6 cars are all on the lead lap. This is a race for the win.
Here's the battle for 5th position. Gary St. Amant on the low side. Mike Eddy trying to take the spot away up high. He'll not get it done this time by. And Mike made a little gentle contact down in turn number 1.
Oh, Steele has a problem. Tim Steele suddenly jerks to the left, going down the back straightaway, and pulls into the pit area. Tim Steele definitely a threat to win this race. Makes a sudden stop. And is this a tire? No, he's just streaming down the pit area. Maybe Ralph can bring us up to date as the car comes to a screeching halt in the pit area. But this is under green, and this one could really hurt.
It is with the right, left, or the right rear tire. That's what they're changing first. They decided to change the right front tire as well. No, they're not changing the right front now. They pull back on that. It was just the right rear tire, and Tim Steele's back underway.
1 lap down, Ralph. Boy, what a disappointing moment for Tim.
Here we rejoin that battle, 4th and 5th positions. It's Gary St. Amant down low, Mike Eddy up high. They tangled again as we watch Tim Steele on pit road. Looks like Eddy's got the advantage this time down into turn number 1, and he'll now chase Jay Sauter, Bob Seneca, and Dennis Lampman, who running 1, 2, 3, about a straightaway out front.
355 laps down, 45 laps to go, and the lead guy on the fast break right now continues to be Sauter, but he's got some ASA teammates right behind him. Bob Seneca, can you believe it, running in 2nd place, with a margin really in front of Mike Eddy, but don't forget Dennis Lampman, who's just stayed in there all day. I've not seen that car get out of line, maybe a couple of inches, just a couple of times, and he's in third place and, about 100 yards ahead of Mike Eddy.
Jay Sauter now not giving up any ground in the second and third place cars. Eddy easing away from the fifth place machine of Gary St. Amant, and Tom Harrington running strongly as well in car number 91, right behind Gary St. Amant.
Just to update you on the people who have been with this lead serial and have some problems in the recent laps, Tim Steele is back out on the track, but he has lost at least one lap, so probably out of it to win this race. Jeff Neal, remember, had to make that what appeared to be on-schedule pit stop, is running at full song. We have a spin in corner number 4. It's Tim Steele. Boy, this yellow flag will really help Jeff Neal. Really help Jeff Neal.
And don't forget Johnny Benson back on the lead lap.
And I was about to comment that Benson was the third guy who had some problems in the race and now finds himself moving up to the tail of that lead group.
Okay, now let me ask you this, Scott. With Benson and Steele, or rather Benson and Jeff Neal being on the tail end of this lap, is there any reason those two drivers wouldn't come back on pit road and put on the best right side tires that they possibly can for the shootout to the finish? They've really got nothing to lose.
I think you'll see that Johnny's car was running extremely well. He may feel he has the best set of tires on. It'll be interesting to see. You still have to, when you come in, you have to a few of the lap cars to contend with. John may take a look at the field and see how many other cars may elect to pit and just elect to stay out there so it's not a couple extra cars to try and pass.
Jay Sauter is really racking up the laps led here in the latter stages of the Race City Speedway event. He came in ranked 5th among those who had led laps this season. ASA, Mike Eddy, of course, was the #1 man, but we've got 40 laps to go, and this should be a shootout at Calgary. Never won an ASA race. Bob Seneca, the all-time winningest driver in ASA, is in second place. Go back to green. Dennis Lampman, he too has never won a race, and Mike Eddy, who's won a slew of these races. Mike Eddy is tied with Butch Miller for second in all-time wins. He right now is 4th. Gary St. Amant is 5th. Tom Harrington is 6th. 7th is Jeff Neal, and 8th is Johnny Benson Jr. Neal and Benson on the lead lap, but several lap cars behind the leaders. Mike Eddy goes to the high side of Dennis Lampman down the back straightaway. The Nationwide Pontiac goes to the high side of Dennis and takes over the number 3 position. And Eddy now goes to work on Bob Seneca. Mike Eddy has decided the time is ready to go.
Unbelievable by Mike Eddy. We haven't seen that for quite a while this afternoon, and look at him closing on Jay Sauter's car number 1. But can he catch Sauter? That's another matter. And if he does get there, can he get around? Jay has shown an ability to run on the bottom side of the racetrack all day. We don't want to wear out the term second-generation racer, but some family pride at stake as Jay's dad, Jim, tied in 6th position with our own Scott Hansen for all-time race winners with 7 victories to his credit. He'd love to see young son Jay make it number 1 today.
There's a lot at stake for the Players Limited Cup, too. Remember, that is a point standings, very lucrative, within the AC-Delco Challenge for 1992. Coming into today, Gary St. Amant was the points leader, Bob Seneca was 2nd, and Mike Eddy was 3rd. And all of them are running in the top 5 right now, so all 3 of them have a chance. And look at Eddy go. Mike Eddy goes to the high side now of Jay Sauter. Eddy is up in the clouds. Sauter is running right down there on the curb and trying to do his best. Oh.
Scott, would you give Jay any advice whatsoever in terms of changing his driving line? You just keep doing what you've been doing all day?
You just have to stay where you're at with the car working where it is. Mike is just driving so determined right now. He found another line out there. His car is a little tight. He needs to run up on the high side. He's going to have to work to get around Jay, I'm sure.
But Jay is giving him plenty of racing room on the high side. He's not running him up into the wall coming down the main strip.
And Mike Eddy gets a bite coming out of corner number 2. He executed a perfect turn 1 and turn 2. He set it up with a solid front stretch run, and Mike Eddy returns to the front once again in an American Speed Association main event.
I would not have believed this 10 laps ago.
Jay Sauter has a problem.
Look at Seneca.
Bob Seneca's going. He may have stayed out just too long on the tires.
Back in the pack, Johnny Benson is on the move, and Tom Harrington is off the pace in car number 91. that BFI Recycle now Oldsmobile, the Cinderella story of the week. It may be crashing down just 27 laps from the checker.
And remember, he will have traveled when he gets home on Tuesday to Nashville, Tennessee, about 5,000 miles and driven 95 hours on the road to run here today. And for a while, it looked like he was going to reap significant dividends as he had a solid top 10, maybe a top 5 run going, but it goes away with just 25 to go.
Well, there's Tom Harrington's machine sitting on pit road. The right front tire comes off, and in the way they're working on that car, it may be more than a tire problem. As they were checking, it appeared the brakes on that automobile, and now the word is coming from the pits. Yes, it is a broken hub, but they'll try to put a wheel on that car, what, Scott, and go out there and run as many laps as they can, try to finish this event?
Yes, he will. You know, Tom's been running real good. I'm sure he's not that far out of the points race this year. Anything can happen to anybody, and it's proving that as the races take place. I think Jay, if you're watching Jay Sauter's car, I think he just plain stayed out there just a little too long on his tires, and it's starting to show right now.
Scott, why does it seem to always boil down to the 88 and the 84? Experience. No other way, is there?
Nothing else to say. Just plain experience. There's two great drivers out there. And, you know, they've got good teams behind them, and you know, they just both drive their heart out. They just never quit.
You know, Scott, I'm asked that question a lot as we look at third running Jay Sauter, fourth running Dennis Lamb. I've asked that question a lot. Well, why do those guys always end up on top? Well, we'll hold off on that explanation as we have a car heavily smoking. That's Tim Fedowa.
Mike Eddy up in the marbles.
Eddy way up in corner number 4. The green flag remains out, or do we have a yellow? We have a spin now in corner number 4. All kinds. Now the yellow flag is out. Wow. First of all, Tim Fedowa, heavy smoke coming down the front straightaway. Mike Eddy comes out of the 4th turn. Maybe there's oil down there. He slides way up out of the groove. Bob Seneker moves underneath him. We have a new race leader. Then rookie Brad Loney comes by. He slides about the same place where Eddy went out of the groove. I'm guessing oil.
I think so.
What looks strange is the front 3 cars were to the low side of the track like they made pit.
All slowing down, too.
Well, there's Mike Eddy. Watch him heading down the backstretch. He has no idea what is facing him coming down into turn number 3. Suddenly that car slides up on the bank, and I don't know, Mike Eddy, it looks like he may be coming on pit road, so he may have had a tire problem.
Wow.
Bob Seneker in the meantime, because the yellow flag was a little slow coming out, Seneker's taken over the lead. And here's Brad Loney spinning right up at the top of the screen. No damage done. Everybody's safely underneath. The rookie driver of car number 33.
Oh, this is great stuff because it's just not following the preseason script. We don't have any idea who's going to pull this one off. Will Eddy win it? Does he have a problem? Or how about Seneker? Seneker, who was down laps earlier. Rob, you called it. Well, we only have 20 laps to go.
Injury getting set for the restart here. Dave Taylor, the crew chief for our new leader, Bob Seneker. Dave, does he have enough engine to stay out in front of Mike Eddy?
Oh, I don't think we can hold him off in the restart. The Lane Automotive Ford Thunderbird seems to get better as the green goes. The motor's just sour. I don't know. We changed the fuel pump this morning. Thought we had a fuel problem late yesterday, and it doesn't seem to have fixed it. It's not missing. It doesn't have any problems. It just needs a little more smoke under the hood, and we'll be all right.
Well, let me ask you then, because you've worked your way back into contention after a long, frustrating day. What was it that got you back here if it wasn't the motor chassis?
Basically, the car's working decent, and we got one hell of a pit crew here. We had decent stops all day, and we're striving hard trying to get this program turned around. The Ford V6 is coming, and I think we're the guys to take it to the front.
Well, Larry, he doesn't have enough motor, but he's got a ton of experience sitting inside the number 84, and just behind him is another big, thick, black book of knowledge in the number 88. So it's going to be interesting to find out which one of these two has enough tricks up his sleeve to survive the final count as we work our way to the finish here at Calgary.
Very well put. A big, thick, black book of Mike Eddy, and yeah, that's the color of the car, too. The oil dry people have applied a lot there to the high side of number 4, so Fedowa, although he's back out on the track right now, perhaps it was he who just deposited the oil down there because all the smoke was coming from beneath the hood of the DNR Racing Ford.
Which probably indicates, Scott, that it would be a power steering pump.
We mentioned the Players' Cup points a few moments ago. St. Amant, the leader. Seneker and Eddy, 2nd and 3rd. Scott Hansen sitting between Rob and I today is in 4th in the Players' Cup points. Tim Steele was 5th, and here is 6th through 10th. But St. Amant, Eddy, and Seneca, 1, 2, 3 in those points, are also in the top 5 in this race.
Mike Eddy had a problem on the restart, just did not get going. He's off the pace. He's giving up positions one after another, and Bob Seneca suddenly has...
Eddy comes to the pits. Unbelievable. Oh, and he spins at the entrance of the pit lane. Mike Eddy spins at about 40 miles an hour trying to get back to the pits. The green flag remains out. Mike is doing donuts down in the pits. He's down 1 lap, and Mike Eddy will not win today here at Calgary.
What a turn of events. Now down to Ralph.
Well, he comes sliding into his pit stall, just gets it stopped. He's had trouble getting it stopped here in the pit lane all day long. They're going to work on the right rear tire. That's where the problem is for Mike Eddy. The crew is in there. They're getting that tire mounted on, and now he will go back out.
Well, I don't know if I'd want to be leading this race. That does not seem to be the optimal place to be here at Calgary today.
And after coming back from nearly a 3-lap deficit, 2 laps plus the distance on the racetrack, Johnny Benson hurdles past Gary St. Amant and into the 4th position.
And suddenly, Seneca has got it easy.
And 2 cars together down the backstretch, Tim Fedewa and Dave Anspaugh. Look at Fedewa. He's going to try to come on pit road. He does not make the turn onto pit road, and he may bring out another caution flag. Let's keep an eye on it down there. Benson now working on Dennis Lampman for 3rd position, and he's got it as Tim Fedewa pulls into the grass.
Fedewa comes to a stop. Well, now he's back under power again. The front of the car is dragging on the ground. Lots of damage underneath there. The yellow flag does come out, though, and so once again, we inject a little more drama. The hypodermy comes out one more time and says, okay, Bob Seneca, can you survive this restart?
I think Johnny's car is really going to be the one to watch.
There are 9 laps to go. Remember, in ASA competition, the last 5 must be run under green, and Benson has passed 3 cars now since the restart, and sits right behind Jay Sauter, who appears to not have as good of tires as he did earlier. And that's the guy that Seneca now has to worry about, his former teammate, Johnny Benson.
Boy, I know a lot of guys are just crestfallen after this day because the last 2 weeks in a row, so many people have had so much misfortune. But this is exciting. This is dramatic. You usually kind of get an idea what's going to happen in a motor race with, say, 50, 75 laps to go. But I'm not so sure about anything happening here.
You get to see one car that gets a little bit more dominant than another.
Yeah.
Right now, you can see cars that come from 1, 2, 3 laps down, and here they are in the content to win.
We're ready to go back to green. Bob Seneca picks up the pace. Jay Sauter, Johnny Benson Jr., the 9 of Dennis Lampman, the 7 of Gary St. Amant, and Jeff Neal right behind those 6 cars right together on the race course.
Boy, it is so hard to pass here, and there are so few laps left. I think Seneca, with 5 laps to go, is probably in a pretty good position.
I don't know. Don't count Benson out. There he comes up on Jay Sauter. He will not jeopardize crashing his race car, but suddenly Benson is in a position to take over the points lead with Mike Eddy experiencing this late race tire problem.
Sauter significantly slower at this late race point here than Bob Seneca. Not quite slow enough for Benson to get around. Benson gets a wheel in underneath coming down the front straightaway, but not enough of a fender to get the position. Now he gets it, perhaps. No, Sauter uses that banking, keeps the RPMs up, and holds back Johnny Benson.
Jay is really driving that car. The tires are just plain wore out on the car, and he's doing everything he can possibly do to get. They even come together a little bit there, and he's just driving the wheels off.
I think what was going on there is that they were trading hand signals.
No, I think Jay's got his hands full with the steering wheel.
Yeah.
He's just plain run out of tires.
Well, Johnny Benson now with about half a straightaway to make up and only 2 laps to go to the checkered flag. I don't think he's going to be able to get it done, but what a valiant comeback.
Well, the amazing thing is, Rob, and you asked this question a couple of breaks ago, how many total laps did Seneca and Benson make up? It was close to 4 total, that's for sure today. And can you imagine 2 people who were down 2 laps in this race are going to finish 1st and 2nd?
How about that True Motorsports stranglehold on this race, as it will be 3 in a row for Bob Seneca if he can just make it around the last 2 turns. He's sideways. Here comes Benson. We're going to have a race to the checker. And Seneca holds him off by a bumper.
3rd went to Sauter, 4th went to Dennis Lampman, 5th to Gary St. Amant, and 6th to Jeff Neal. Seneca was working his way through slower traffic, and it looked to me like he just punched it to work his way through, and he forgot it's slippery out there. When he punched it, he got out of the racing lane and gave Benson an opening for a couple of seconds.
Bob Seneca just did a super job coming from Johnny Benson. Another driver did a great job. Jay Sauter to hang on to third there with the rack and tires. I mean, he just had to have those tires just roar right out.
And Dennis Lampman, a career best 4th place finish.
Let's take another look at this finish and see which, well, we picked it up after Seneker got out of the racing groove. Here comes Benson to the inside. Seneker sees him coming, tries to close the door, drops down low, gives him a little bit of a fender, gives him enough racing room. There's lap traffic due ahead, and Seneker wins by about a full. Well, make that the car length, although there's not a length separating the two cars. Bob Seneker picking up win number, what is that, 72 in his career. So he's won a few of these races. It's Seneker's first win since the opening race at Nashville. He's had a couple of DNFs, did not finishes in amongst those, but also 2 seconds, a third, and a 4th. So if anybody thought that this team was tapering off just a bit, Ralph, I think Mr. Seneker has proven to us that, they're not really.
Well, I'll tell you what, that thick black books that we were talking about earlier, I think is what made the day here, gentlemen. Bob, a masterful bit of driving. Tell me about that last corner. You almost gave Johnny a chance at you.
Well, them two cars were coming up the lap couldn't decide to get down. I had to almost go between them, and they should have got out of the way, but we saved it one more lap, and it might have been a different game, but I can't believe we won this thing after the past weekend and this way things were going today. But the team did a heck of a job, and the Lane Automotive Ford come through after they got the right set of Goodyears on it, and I'm just happy for everybody.
Well, tell me about this engine situation. Dave Taylor said he wasn't sure you had enough motor to be able to stay out in front when we got to that point near the end there where you got out front. What was it that made the difference for you here today?
Well, the motor was stumbling. The motor's good, except it stumbled off the corner. There was some kind of carburetor problem that we had the start of the race here, and that really hurt us. But the car handled well when we got the right set on it. And when I finally got the outside groove there where it was a little bit not so bumpy, I found I could cruise a little better. And that made the day, I guess.
It sure did, gentlemen. And also that big, thick book of knowledge that Bob Seneker had. He used it to his advantage and worked himself back up to the lead and the win.
It's not that often that we see emotion from Bob Seneker, and I don't know if we just saw it, but that's about as close, I think, as I've ever seen Bob Seneker be emotional after a win in the American Speed Association. We've got a lot more, so stay with us. We'll be back to Calgary. The 1992 AC-Delco Challenge Series on TNN is brought to you in part by Krylon. The no runs, no drips, no errors spray paint. And by Mr. Goodwrench, the GM expert at participating GM dealerships. And by cold-filtered Miller Genuine Draft and Miller Genuine Draft Light, taking the country by storm. And by Odor Eaters, Athlete's Foot Cream, Powder and Spray to cure athlete's foot and control its odor. Last week, we had a couple of drivers, I had 5 drivers, as a matter of fact, that had their best career finish ever in ASA because 10 cars finished the race. This week, Bob Seneker, almost 3 laps down, wins. Johnny Benson, almost 2 laps down, finishes second. And Jay Sauter, involved in a reasonably serious looking crash, was third. I don't think you can get much more drama than that packed into 7 days.
They sure come back and put on a heck of a race. You know, it was an action-packed day all day long. You know, the track played a factor, and all the guys raced hard all day long.
Well, Ralph, he didn't win, but the man you're standing next to's got to be happy.
Well, he has to be happy. You're right, Larry. He did a fantastic job of sticking with it all day long. Johnny, boy, they made you work today.
Oh, I'll tell you what, if we would have had that flat and hit the wall, I think we would have won. Port City Racing, Burgess Chevrolet, and Valvoline been doing great for us. I'm hoping we put a good show on for them.
Tell me about the racetrack coming apart. How difficult was it inside the cockpit?
Well, if the camera was on us a couple times down there doing a little dirt track, and you can see the track was bad. The car was just excellent. You know, like I say, we needed a couple more laps.
Well, John Benson leads this league and wins this year. He has won 3 times. That's 3 wins for Chevrolet, 2 wins for Pontiac, and 2 wins for Ford. So though there were some who were saying, well, the Fords have a ways to go. I don't think it's so much that. It seems to be reasonably evenly distributed.
Absolutely. And Scott, you were almost a little prophetic when you said it's a curse to be on top of the heap in the points. Well, Mike Eddy appeared to be headed for victory, but a flat tire takes him out while in the points lead, and it's really going to be tough or close coming up. Here are the next TV races on TNN. The next one, the Track Auto 200, 1 week from today, July the 12th, 3 p.m. Eastern Time from the Milwaukee Mile.
The Players Limited 300 from Nels Corners, that's Cayuga, August 2nd, 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And we'll be back here to Calgary on the 4th weekend in August, the 23rd, for the Players Limited, 500. We had 18 caution flags today in 400 laps, just one short of the all-time record for number of caution flags in an ASA race. One of those caution flags was caused by the man standing with Ralph right now.
Boy, Larry, you know, as they say, so close, but yet so far. You can see the damage to the front of the #1 machine, and driver Jay Sauter did a tremendous job of keeping it up there. Jay, is it getting to you a little bit? Is it starting to get a bit frustrating that you're getting so close but just can't find victory lane yet?
Well, it's not frustrating. Today we had a bad day. The KC Motorsports crew pulled us out of it. Lapping traffic, got up in the marbles, spun me around and got in an accident. The KC Motorsports crew went to work, did a fabulous job, got the car back out there, kept us on the lead lap. I can't thank the guys enough.
I think what's amazing about your drive is that after that incident with Sterling Marlin and the damage to the car, it looks like it must have been a nightmare to drive, but was it that bad?
It was a hectic day. Something happened to the brakes in that wreck, so I had to pump the brakes the rest of the race. Plus, something happened to the power steering rack, and it was sticky. It would jerk to the right one lap, jerk to the left to the other lap. So we held on, and everybody worked hard and did a good job, and we're here at the end.
Well, can you give us that first victory on TV next week in Milwaukee?
Absolutely. We're going to be there. We want to get it. And I'd like to say hi to my mom, my wife, and my little girls at home. We miss you, and we'll be home tomorrow.
Jay Sauter came into today's race ranked 3rd in points. He's likely to stay there. Benson was 2nd. He's likely to stay there. We'll be back with more right after this. Talk about pressure. Troop Racing now has won the last 5 races in a row. Boy, I don't know if I'd want to sit in that cockpit the next time, because you're expected to win when you come to Race City. Unofficially, Bob winning it, John Benson Jr. 2nd, Jay Sauter 3rd, Dennis Slampman, his finest race on TV at least of 1992, was 4th, and Gary St. Amant comes home 5th. He remained highly ranked in the Players Limited Cup. Jeff Neal was 6th, Kent Stauffer was 7th, Mike Eddy recovers to an 8th place finish off of the lead lap. Tim Steele is 9th, also a recovery there, and Tom Harrington, he was 10th. Now Eddy, Steele, and Harrington were all in that lead serial and had a shot at finishing in the top 5. Continuing the unofficial rundown, 11th through 15th, Tim Fedua, Brad Loney, Mac McClellan, Leighton Reese, and Tony Roper.
Well, the rookie battle will tighten with Steve Holtzhausen having problems. Terry Wente 16th, Holtzhausen 17th, Mike Sorensen 18th, rounding out the top 20, Dave Anspaugh and Jim Weber. 21st through 25th, Glenn Allen Jr., Sterling Marlin, Trevor Siebert, the Canadian, Michael Waltrip, and Harold Fair 25th. And 26th through 28th, Tony Raines out early with an engine, Tom Jones and Joel Knott.
Scott, as you watch the unfolding here in the later laps, is there anything that you would have done differently if you were Benson?
No, I think Johnny just drove a heck of a race all day. You know, he come from such a deficit a couple laps down. Just to come back here and finish 2nd was just a good day for him.
Upcoming here on TNN, Track Auto 200 from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Meanwhile, Ralph is standing by with Dennis Lampman.
Well, Dennis, you came here to Calgary after having built a brand new car from Kansas City, and it seems like that car worked out pretty good for you today. A fine 4th place out.
Yeah, we had a lot of help from a lot of people, and my crew worked real hard, and they made sure the car was to what we had last week. We set everything back up again and made our changes to this new car, and we had faith in it, and they worked real well and worked real hard on it all week long. And when we got here and the crew worked good, I'd like to thank my sponsors, and we had a good run. It was a nice day.
So Dennis Lampman comes home in 4th position this afternoon. There you see the winners enjoying those spoils of victory. The Players Limited Cup, a very big part of the racing scene north of the U.S.-Canadian border. That means that we are in the country of Canada. There is Bob Seneker, who comes home on top this afternoon. Bob Seneker, the winningest driver of all time, picks up win number 72 in ASA competition. Be with us next week from Milwaukee, Wisconsin for the Track Auto 200. Until then, we'll see you at the races.